Hello everyone, and welcome to the Fictional Vortex. So we are back with an interesting movie on what if Naruto was the Saiyan god of the DxD world, a being F. Eared by Great Red, Naruto x Yasaka x Kuroka, High School DxD. But before we start, I just want to remind you to please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button if you enjoy my content. Let's start the story. Chapter 1. The Fox Among Dragons. The midnight sky over Tokyo shimmered with artificial brilliance, neon signs battling starlight for dominance over the urban landscape. A solitary figure stood atop the Tokyo skytree, golden hair swaying in the high-altitude wind, his crimson coat emblazoned with black flame patterns fluttering like wings against the cityscape below. Uzumaki Naruto closed his eyes, extending his senses far beyond human capability. Something was wrong. The natural energy patterns flowing through the city had shifted dramatically in the past hour, twisted and corrupted by an intrusion that didn't belong in this world. A dark chakra signature pulsed from somewhere in Shinjuku, radiating malice that felt painfully familiar yet fundamentally alien to this reality. Never a quiet night in this city, he murmured, voice deeper and more measured than it had been in his youth. 5 years in this strange new dimension had changed him in ways beyond the physical. He stepped off the edge of the observation deck into empty space, plummeting toward the distant ground. Wind screamed past his ears as he fell, but his expression remained serene. 300 meters from the pavement, golden light erupted around his body like a solar flare. The descent slowed impossibly as he manipulated the energy around him, bending gravity and air to his will. Naruto NDED in a deserted service alley with the lightness of a falling leaf, the golden aura fading to a subtle shimmer across his tanned skin. He adjusted the headband that still bore the symbol of Konoha, a memento from a world that now existed only in his memories. The source of the disturbance lay 2 kilometers west. Rather than rushing headlong toward danger as he might have in his younger days, Naruto walked calmly through the late-night crowds, a strange figure noted but quickly forgotten in the urban anonymity of Tokyo. Experience had taught him the value of observation before action. As he approached Shinjuku Central Park, the malevolent energy signature intensified. The sparse midnight crowd thinned to nothing, an unnatural emptiness that spoke of instinctive fear driving people away. At the park's edge, he detected a barrier, invisible to normal humans but glowing like fractured glass to his enhanced perception. A bounded field, he concluded, recognizing the devil magic that created artificial spaces overlapping reality. Strong 1, 2. He pressed his palm against the barrier, sending a pulse of his own energy through it. The field rippled like disturbed water but held firm. With a slight frown, Naruto formed a single hand sign and whispered, Kai. The barrier shattered with a sound like breaking crystal. Fragments of magical energy dissolved into the night air as he stepped through into a transformed landscape. The park had become a blasted wasteland, trees uprooted and ground scorched. At its center, a massive western dragon, scales gleaming emerald in the moonlight, was encircled by 7 figures in ornate Gothic attire. The dragon, easily 15 meters long with eyes of burning amber, bled from dozens of wounds inflicted by spears of dark light wielded by its attackers. Despite its injuries, it fought with desperate ferocity, claws tearing through the earth as it struggled against binding spells that glowed with malevolent purpose. Yield, beast, commanded a tall man with aristocratic features and silver hair. Your territory now belongs to House Valifor. Your resistance only prolongs your suffering. The dragon's response was a defiant roar that shook the artificial dimension, followed by a jet of green flame that the devils barely managed to deflect with hastily erected magical shields. Lord Ezreal, one of the subordinates called, the barrier has been breached. All eyes turned toward Naruto as he walked calmly into the devastated clearing, hands in his pockets. The silver-haired devil, Ezreal Valifor, raised an eyebrow at the intrusion. A human, he chuckled darkly. How unfortunate for you to stumble into matters beyond your comprehension. Belial, dispose of this trash. A brutish devil with crimson skin stepped forward, magical energy coalescing around his fists. With pleasure, my lord. Naruto didn't shift his stance as the devil charged, moving with supernatural speed that would appear as nothing but a blur to human eyes. When Belial's fist was mere centimeters from his face, Naruto simply tilted his head. The devil's expression shifted from confidence to confusion as his attack met empty air. Before he could register what happened, Naruto's hand closed around his wrist with implacable force. "I'm not here for you," Naruto stated calmly, golden energy flickering in his eyes. "Stand down, and you can walk away." "Arrogant human," Belial snarled, dark magic erupting from his trapped arm in a desperate counterattack. Naruto sighed. With a casual flick of his wrist, he sent the devil flying across the clearing. Belial crashed through 3 trees before coming to rest, unconscious and smoking from the contact with Naruto's energy. The remaining devils shifted nervously, their confidence visibly shaken. "Not human," Ezreal corrected himself, narrowing his eyes. "What are you, angel, Yukai? You don't have the stench of fallen about you." The wounded dragon had gone still, its amber eyes focused intently on Naruto with a mixture of wariness and curiosity. "Does it matter?" Naruto countered, taking a step forward. With each footfall, the ground beneath him seemed to hum with resonant energy. "You're trespassing in the territory of a being who's done nothing to provoke you, using forbidden binding magic outlawed by your own Mao." Ezreal's eyes widened slightly. "You know of devil affairs. Interesting. Perhaps we can come to an arrangement. This dragon occupies valuable territory that House Valifor requires for an upcoming project. I could compensate you handsomely for your non-interference." Memories flashed through Naruto's mind, of Zabuza and Gato, of the Akatsuki and their hunts, of countless beings who viewed others as nothing but tools or obstacles. Some things remained constant across dimensions. "I have a counter-offer," Naruto replied, his voice dropping to a register that carried subtle menace. "Release the dragon, leave this place, and you won't have to explain to your Mao why half your house ended up in intensive care." The devils exchanged glances, uncertainty creeping into their expressions. Ezreal's aristocratic features hardened with anger. "You dare threaten a devil noble? Whoever or whatever you are, your arrogance exceeds your wisdom." He raised a hand crackling with dark energy. "Take him." 5 devils launched simultaneous attacks, spears of darkness, chains of binding light, circles of destructive magic, all converging on Naruto from different directions. To the dragon's astonished eyes, Naruto simply disappeared, the attacks passing through empty air before colliding with each other in a catastrophic magical backfire. The devils had barely registered their failure when Naruto reappeared among them, moving with fluid grace at belied the devastating power behind each precise strike. He touched one devil's forehead with 2 fingers, causing the attacker to collapse instantly as though strings had been cut. A second devil received a palm strike that somehow redirected her own magical energy back through her system, leaving her gasping on the ground. The third and fourth attackers met similar fates before they could even track his movements. The fifth devil, a woman with raven hair and eyes like polished onyx, proved more formidable. Her hands blurred through intricate patterns, conjuring a cage of crimson lightning that expanded outward with explosive force. Naruto's response was equally fluid. Golden energy spiraled in his palm, condensing into a perfect sphere that he thrust forward with practiced precision. "Rasengan," he stated simply. The 2 techniques collided with a thunderous crash. For a moment, they struggled against each other, crimson lightning against golden spiral, before Naruto's attack shredded through the opposition like paper. The female devil barely managed to erect a secondary shield before the residual energy sent her tumbling across the blasted landscape. Ezreal Valifor stood alone now, his confident demeanor replaced by cautious reassessment. "You're no ordinary being," he stated, power gathering around him in dark waves. "The energy you wield, it's not like anything in our records." Naruto met his gaze steadily. "Last chance. Walk away." Instead of answering, Ezreal thrust both hands forward. The air distorted as reality itself seemed to warp, a spatial manipulate ion that would trap its target in a pocket dimension. Golden energy erupted around Naruto, forming the spectral outline of a massive fox with 9 flowing tails. The spatial distortion shattered against this manifestation, unable to contain or affect the concentrated power. "That's..." Ezreal's eyes widened in genuine fear. "What are you?" "Someone who's tired of giving warnings," Naruto replied. In a flash of golden light, he closed the distance between them. The devil noble desperately summoned his family's prized magic, a hypnotic ability that could control minds, but found his power ding off Naruto's consciousness like water from oiled canvas. The punch that followed was almost gentle by Naruto's standards, but it still sent Ezreal crashing to the ground several meters away. Magical defenses shattered and consciousness wavering. Impossible, the Devil Noble gasped, blood trickling from the corner of his mouth. Our intelligence said this territory had no powerful guardian. Naruto approached the fallen noble, his expression solemn rather than triumphant. Consider this a lesson, Devil. Not everything in this world is what your intelligence reports say. With the immediate threat neutralized, Naruto turned toward the wounded dragon, which watched him with guarded calculation. The binding spells still held the creature partially immobilized, dark energy eating into its scales like acid. Those look painful, Naruto observed, approaching slowly with open hands to show he meant no harm. May I? The dragon's amber eyes narrowed, but after a moment of tense evaluation, it inclined its massive head in what appeared to be consent. Naruto placed his palms against the nearest binding spell. The magic was complex, designed not just to restrain but to subjugate, to break the will along with the body. It reminded him uncomfortably of the caged bird seal once used on the Hyuga branch family. This might feel strange, he warned, closing his eyes to better visualize the magical structure. Golden energy flowed from his hands, not attacking the spell directly but rather slipping between its component parts, identifying the weaknesses in its construction. He dragon hissed as the binding spells began to unravel, dark energy dissipating into the night air. As the last restraint dissolved, the massive creature shuddered with relief, stretching wings that spanned nearly 20 meters. Thank you, stranger, the dragon spoke, its voice surprisingly melodious despite its rumbling depth. Few would intervene in devil affairs for a dragon's sake. I don't like seeing anyone caged or hunted. Naruto replied simply. Do you need healing? Some of those wounds look deep. The dragon's laugh was like distant thunder. You are either very brave or very foolish to offer aid so casually to one of my kind. Dragons are not known for their gratitude. And I'm not known for worrying about reputations, Naruto countered with a slight smile. Besides, those injuries will take weeks to heal naturally, even with your regenerative abilities. The dragon regarded him curiously. You know much of dragon physiology for someone who was clearly not of this world originally. Naruto stiffened slightly. What makes you say that? Your energy. The dragon's nostrils flared. It carries traces of elsewhere. A scent I have not encountered in my 8 centuries of existence. Neither devil, angel, nor yokai, though somehow reminiscent of all three and yet entirely different. Before Naruto could respond, movement caught his attention. Ezreal Valifor had regained consciousness and was attempting to create a teleportation circle while his companions remained incapacitated. Leaving so soon, Naruto called, causing the devil to freeze. We weren't finished discussing your trespassing. This isn't over, Ezreal snarled, though fear undermined his attempt at menace. House Valifor doesn't forgive insults. And I don't forgive those who hunt others for territory or power. Naruto replied evenly. Take your people and go. If I find you troubling peaceful beings again, our next conversation won't be so pleasant. The Devil Lord glared but completed his teleportation circle, gathering his unconscious companions with magical assistance. Before activating the transportation, he fixed Naruto with a venomous stare. The underworld will know of you after tonight, stranger. Your interference has consequences you cannot imagine. With that ominous declaration, the devils vanished in flashes of crimson light, leaving Naruto alone with the wounded dragon in the devastated park. The moment they disappeared, the artificial dimension began to collapse, reality reasserting itself around them. The dragon looked around with concern. This creates a problem, it observed. My true form cannot remain visible in the human world without causing panic. Naruto nodded in understanding. Can you maintain a human form despite your injuries? Temporarily, though it will drain my remaining strength. Then allow me to help first. Naruto approached again, hands glowing with gentle golden energy. This won't heal everything, but it should stabilize the worst wounds. The dragon hesitated only briefly before lowering its massive head to allow Naruto's touch. As his hands made contact with the emerald scales, Naruto channeled healing energy, a technique developed from his understanding of both his own world's medical ninjutsu and this world's magical systems. The dragon's wounds began to close, damaged scales regenerating under the influence of the golden light. The creature made a sound somewhere between a growl and a purr as the pain evidently subsided. "Your healing carries the essence of nature itself," the dragon remarked with surprise. "How curious. Nature energy was part of my training where I came from," Naruto explained, focusing on a particularly deep wound along the dragon's flank. "Though it works differently here than in my original world." When he had done what he could, Naruto stepped back. The dragon was still injured, but no longer critically so. The massive creature closed its eyes in concentration, and its form began to shimmer and contract. Where the 15-meter dragon had been, a woman now stood, tall and regal with emerald hair that fell to her waist and amber eyes that retained their reptilian vertical pupils. Her attire materialized as an elegant kimono in varying shades of green, embroidered with patterns reminiscent of scales. Despite the transformation, Naruto could see her wink slightly as she adjusted to the human form. "I am in your debt, stranger," she said, her human voice still carrying a melodic quality. "I am Ryuko, guardian of the Eastern District ley lines." "Uzumaki Naruto," he responded with a slight bow that recognized her status without subservience. "I'm just glad I was nearby." The park around them had returned to normal, the damage from their battle existing only in the alternate dimension. Late-night pedestrians had begun to filter back into the area, their instinctive avoidance fading with the bounded field's collapse. "We should move somewhere less public," Ryuko suggested, glancing at the humans who were beginning to notice the oddly dressed pair. "My residence is nearby, if you would honor me with your presence. I have questions about your unusual energy." Naruto sensed no deception in her offer, though caution born from years of ninja training never fully abandoned him. "Lead the way," he agreed. They walked in companionable lens through the gradually emptying streets of Shinjuku. Ryuko occasionally winced as her partially healed injuries troubled her human form, but she maintained a dignified bearing that drew admiring glances from late-night revelers. Her residence proved to be a traditional Japanese house improbably nestled within a small private garden hidden between skyscrapers, the kind of property that would cost billions of yen in central Tokyo. A bounded field subtler than the one used by the devils concealed it from casual observation, making the traditional structure appear as nothing more than another modern building to passers-by. "Welcome to my humble domain," Ryuko said with formal courtesy as they passed through an ornate gate that materialized at her touch. Inside, the garden expanded imposibly, spatial manipulation that created an oasis of nature amid the urban sprawl. Cherry trees in perpetual bloom lined a stone path leading to a house that would not have looked out of place in the Edo period. "Beautiful," Naruto commented sincerely. The place reminded him somewhat of the Hyuga compound in Konoha, though with draconic rather than human aesthetic touches, subtle carvings of scales in the woodwork. Fountains designed to resemble flowing dragon forms. Inside, Ryuko directed him to a traditionally appointed sitting room before excusing herself. She returned minutes later in a simpler kimono, bearing a tray with tea service. "Forgive my limited hospitality," she said as she gracefully prepared the tea in precise, traditional movements. "I rarely entertain visitors." "I'm honored by your trust," Naruto replied, accepting the offered cup with both hands in the proper manner. Ryuko studied him as they drank. "You move between worlds with remarkable ease," she observed. "Most outsiders find our customs bewildering, yet you navigate them as naturally as you wielded that unusual energy against the devils." Naruto smiled slightly. "I've had 5 years to adapt. Besides, some aspects of your culture remind me of home." "And where is home, if I may ask?" Her amber eyes watched him with draconic intensity. Naruto gazed into his tea, memories of Konoha flashing through his mind. Ichiraku Ramen, the Hokage Monument, faces of friends now lost to him across dimensions. "A place I can't return to," he answered finally. "A world of shinobi, ninja, with different laws of nature, different powers, different conflicts. I was fighting in a war when something happened. A collision of powerful techniques created a rift between dimensions. When I woke up, I was here." Ryuko nodded thoughtfully. "The barriers between realities have grown thinner in recent centuries. There are legends of travelers between worlds, though few with power such as yours. The energy you wield, it reminds me somewhat of senjutsu, the power used by certain yokai, yet fundamentally different." In my world, it was called chakra, Naruto explained. A combination of physical and spiritual energy. When I came here, it changed, adapted. The Nine Tails energy that was part of me transformed when it encountered this world's ambient power. Nine Tails. Ryuko's eyes widened. You carry the power of a nine-tailed fox spirit. That explains the manifestation I witnessed. Naruto nodded. Kurama was his name, a being of immense chakra sealed within me since birth. We eventually became partners rather than prisoner and jailer. When I crossed dimensions, his consciousness didn't survive intact, but his power merged completely with mine and somehow evolved. He extended his hand, allowing golden energy to manifest above his palm, a miniature sun that illuminated the room with warm light. Within the golden sphere, 9 tiny tails swirled in continuous motion. Fascinating, Ryuko breathed, leaning closer to observe. It resonates with draconic energy patterns while maintaining vulpine characteristics. I've never seen anything like it. Neither have most beings in this world, Naruto agreed. Dissipating the energy, which sometimes creates misunderstandings. Ryuko's laugh was unexpectedly warm. A diplomatic way to describe being attacked by paranoid supernatural factions. Her expression grew more serious. Tonight was not the first time you've intervened in such conflicts, was it? No, Naruto admitted. I try to stay out of politics between factions. But when I see the strong preying on those who can't defend themselves. He shrugged. Old habits. A dangerous philosophy in our world, Ryuko observed. The supernatural factions have maintained a fragile balance for centuries. Individual actors who disrupt that balance rarely survive long. I've noticed, Naruto replied dryly. But I didn't survive a world war in dimensional travel Oh, hide in the shadows while others suffer. The dragon studied him with new appreciation. You are either the most foolhardy being I've encountered in centuries or... She paused, amber eyes narrowing slightly. There's a prophecy among the elder dragons. A being of golden light who walks between worlds, neither bound by our laws nor subject to our limitations. The Great Crimson One, whom you might know as Great Red, has watched for such an emergence. Naruto frowned. I'm not big on prophecies. In my experience, they're either too vague to be useful or self-fulfilling traps. Perhaps, Ryuko conceded, yet the coincidence is striking. Before their conversation could continue, Naruto sensed a presence approaching the house, moving too quickly and purposefully to be a casual passerby. His posture shifted subtly into readiness, a change Ryuko immediately noticed. We have company, she stated, rising gracefully. Someone has breached my outer wards without triggering the alarms, a considerable feat. Naruto extended his senses. The approaching energy signature felt neither malevolent nor entirely benign, a carefully controlled power that reminded him somewhat of certain Anbu techniques from his world. Not a devil, he assessed. Something feline. Ryuko raised an eyebrow, impressed by his perception. A Nekomata, perhaps, or one of the rarer cat yukai. A light tap at the door interrupted their speculation. When Ryuko slid it open, a woman stood on the veranda, tall and sinuous with long black hair and golden eyes slit like a cat's. She wore a black kimono that clung to her curvaceous figure, the neckline daringly low. Most striking, however, were the 2 black cat ears perched atop her head and the twin tails that swayed lazily behind her. My, the newcomer purred, her voice playful but with an undercurrent of caution. When I followed rumors of a golden-haired stranger battling devils, I never expected to find him taking tea with the reclusive Eastern Dragon. Ryuko's posture stiffened almost imperceptibly. Kuroka of the Neko Show, your reputation precedes you. The cat woman smiled, revealing slightly elongated canines. All exaggerated, I assure you. Her golden eyes shifted to Naruto, studying him with undisguised curiosity. Aren't you going to introduce me to your powerful friend? That depends on why you're tracking him, Ryuko countered smoothly. Kuroka's smile widened as she sauntered into the room uninvited, her movements fluid and deliberately sensual. Information is valuable currency in our world, Dragon-san. A mysterious being with power that makes devil nobles flee has naturally attracted attention. She circled around to view Naruto from different angles, her tails occasionally brushing against furniture in what seemed like carelessness but was clearly calculated behavior. Interesting, she murmured. You smell of fox, yet not like any kitsune I've encountered. Something more primal, more divine. Naruto remained seated, his posture relaxed despite the tension in the room. You could have introduced yourself directly instead of following me, he pointed out. Kuroka laughed, a sound like silk sliding over skin. Direct approaches can be so dangerous for someone with my complicated status. Besides, watching you handle those arrogant devils was quite entertaining. She dropped gracefully to sit across from him, ignoring proper etiquette with casual disregard that made Ryuko's eye twitch slightly. Kuroka is a stray devil, Ryuko explained with disapproval evident in her tone. A reincarnated devil who killed her master and fled the underworld. Such harsh terminology, Kuroka pouted. I prefer independently operating supernatural being of flexible allegiance. Her expression darkened momentarily, and that devil deserved worse than what I gave him. Naruto studied her more carefully. Beneath her playful exterior, he sensed old pain and carefully banked anger, emotions he recognized all too well from his own past. I don't judge people by their reputations, he said finally. But I am curious why a being of flexible allegiance would risk approaching two powerful entities just to satisfy curiosity. Kuroka tilted her head, her expression becoming more calculating. Perhaps I'm looking for allies with particular talents. The supernatural world is increasingly factional, with ancient powers stirring that haven't been active in millennia. Independent operators like myself need powerful friends. Or, Ryuko interjected, perhaps you're gathering intelligence for one of those factions. Kuroka's tails bristled slightly before settling back into their languid sway. So suspicious, Dragon-san. I'm wounded by your lack of trust. Before Ryuko could respond, Naruto raised a hand. Whoever you're working with or for, Kuroka-san, I have no interest in factional politics. I'm not a weapon to be pointed at anyone's enemies. The Nekosho studied him with new interest. No. Then why interfere with devil business tonight? Why heal a dragon most would consider dangerous? Your actions suggest someone who takes sides, Naruto-kun. The familiar honorific rolled off her tongue with deliberate intimacy. I help those who need it, Naruto clarified. Regardless of faction or species. That's different from aligning myself with political agendas. BTLE change came over Kuroka's expression, a flicker of what might have been genuine respect. How refreshingly straightforward, almost naive, if you weren't so obviously powerful. She leaned forward, her golden eyes intent. What if I told you I know of innocent yokai being hunted by devil experimenters? Children who need the kind of help you seem so willing to provide. Ryuko frowned. Kuroka, it's no deception. The Nekosho interrupted, her playfulness momentarily abandoned. The Chaos Brigade's Supernatural Research Division has been abducting rare yokai specimens. My sources indicate they've recently targeted several young Nekosho, possibly the last of our kind besides myself and my sister. Naruto's expression hardened at the mention of experiments and children, memories of Orochimaru's laboratories flashing through his mind. Where? He asked simply. Naruto-san, Ryuko cautioned, this could easily be manipulation. The Nekosho are known for their cunning. Kuroka shot the dragon a resentful glance before refocusing on Naruto. 3 days from now, they're moving their specimens from a facility in northern Hokkaido to a more secure location. The transport will be vulnerable briefly as it passes through the Akon National Park. She produced a small scroll from her kimono sleeve. The details are here, including the magical signatures of the wards they typically use. Naruto accepted the scroll but didn't immediately open it. Why come to me with this? You clearly have your own resources. Kuroka's smile returned, though it didn't reach her eyes. Because I've been watching you, Fox-san. You've interfered in 6 supernatural conflicts in the past month alone, always on the side of the underdog. You have power that makes devil nobles flee in terror. And most importantly, her voice dropped to a near whisper, you smell of home to those of us with Vulpine connections. Something in her words rang true, despite Ryuko's obvious skepticism. Naruto had encountered enough deception in his life to recognize the difference between manipulation and desperate need thinly veiled by pride. I'll investigate, he decided, tucking the scroll away. If what you say is accurate, I'll help. But, he fixed her with a steady gaze that momentarily made Kuroka's confident demeanor falter. if this is a trap or misdirection, we'll have a very different conversation afterward. The Nekosho recovered quickly, her smile turning both pleased and slightly predatory. I would expect nothing less, Naruto-kun. She rose in a fluid motion, stretching deliberately to emphasize her figure. I'll be in touch to hear what you discover. With a wink at Naruto and a smirk at Ryuko, she sauntered toward the door. At the threshold, she paused to glance back over her shoulder. Oh, and Fox-san. The Yukai faction in Kyoto has been asking about you. Their leader seems quite interested in the rumors of a golden-haired stranger with fox energy. Before either could respond, Kuroka dissolved into shadow, her presence vanishing from Ryuko's wards as though she'd never been there. Nekosho. Ryuko sighed with evident distaste. Masters of appearing and disappearing when it suits them. Naruto studied the space where Kuroka had stood. You don't trust her information. I don't trust her motives, Ryuko clarified. The information may well be accurate. She has no reason to risk antagonizing someone of your power with outright lies. But Nekosho rarely act without multiple layers of purpose. She returned to her seat, refilling their teacups with practiced grace. That said, her mention of Kyoto is significant. If Yasaka, leader of the Yukai faction, is indeed asking about you. She frowned thoughtfully. The nine-tailed fox lead. Taking interest in someone with your particular energy signature cannot be coincidence. Another nine-tailed fox? Naruto asked, genuine surprise evident in his voice. I've encountered various Yukai since arriving in this world, but never another with 9 tails. Yasaka is unique among kitsune, Ryuko explained. The only current 9-tailed fox in existence, as far as most supernatural beings know. Her power approaches that of lesser gods within Japanese territory. That she would notice your presence is not surprising. What's surprising is that she's actively seeking informatio. Rather than simply summoning you to her court. Naruto considered this information carefully. Would these kidnapped Nekosho children be under her protection? Technically, yes. All Yukai in Japan fall under Kyoto's authority. Though their practical reach has diminished in recent centuries as other factions have gained influence. Ryuko's expression turned troubled. If devil elements are indeed abducting Yukai children for experiments, it could potentially spark conflict between supernatural factions. The current peace is fragile at best. The conversation shifted to broader supernatural politics as Ryuko explained the complex relationships between devils, angels, fallen angels, and various mythological pantheons. Naruto listened attentively, filing away information that might prove useful while considering his next moves. As their discussion wound down, Ryuko offered her garden's hospitality for the night, which Naruto gratefully accepted. The dragon led him to a guest room appointed in traditional style. Sliding rice paper doors opening onto a view of a small private pond where koi fish swam in lazy circles beneath floating lanterns. Rest well, Uzumaki Naruto, Ryuko said formally. Whatever path you choose regarding the Nekosho's request or Kyoto's interest, know that you have earned a dragon's gratitude this night. That is a rare currency in our world. After she departed, Naruto sat in meditation beside the open doorway, golden energy occasionally flickering across his skin as he processed the evening's events. The peaceful garden contrasted sharply with the turbulent political undercurrents he'd stumbled into. 5 years in this dimension had taught him much about its power structures and supernatural factions, but tonight's encounter suggest deeper complexities he'd only begun to understand. The mention of prophecy troubled him. He'd had his fill of destiny and predetermined paths in his original world. As midnight deepened toward dawn, Naruto extended his senses outward, connecting with the natural energy flowing through Tokyo. Far above the city, beyond human perception, he detected a massive presence briefly touching the edges of this reality, something vast and crimson watching from the space between dimensions before withdrawing into the void. Great Red, the dragon god of dreams, had taken notice. In the dimensional gap, a void space between realities, the immense form of Great Red paused in its eternal flight. The Apocalypse Dragon, true Red Dragon God Emperor, shifted its cosmic awareness toward the island nation of Japan where an anomalous energy signature had flared briefly. For millennia, Great Red had ignored the affairs of lesser beings, content to soar through the infinity of the dimensional gap. Yet this energy, neither devil, angel, dragon, nor human, resonated with something ancient and unexpected, something that should not exist in this reality. The dragon god's consciousness brushed against the golden energy, testing its nature without directly interfering. What it discovered caused the equivalent of a draconic frown to cross its vast countenance. This power carried echoes of another world's fundamental laws, chakra, the energy system of a reality Great Red had observed only distantly. But it had somehow merged with this world's divine dragon essence in a manner that should have been impossible, creating something new and unpredictable. Great Red did not fear many things in the infinite multiverse, but unpredictability in cosmic forces that warranted attention. The dragon god withdrew its awareness, returning to its solitary flight through the void. But a fraction of its vast consciousness remained fixed on the golden-haired stranger who carried power from beyond this reality's boundaries. The prophecy spoken at the dawn of the current age stirred in the dragon god's memory. When the fox walks with dragon's might, the crimson dream must yield to light. Perhaps, Great Red considered, it was time to watch this dimension more closely than it had in millennia. In Kyoto, within a hidden shrine complex that served as the center of Yukai governance in Japan, a woman of XKuroka ordinary beauty sat in meditation beneath a sacred sakura tree. Her long golden hair, adorned with traditional ornaments, framed a face of ageless perfection. 9 magnificent fox tails, golden white and tipped with black, fanned out behind her meditative form. Yasaka, leader of the Yukai faction, opened amber eyes that gleamed with ancient power. She had felt it again, that resonance of family, yet foreign energy that had been appearing across Japan for the past 5 years. Oboro, she called softly. A shadow detached itself from the darkness, materializing as a tengu in human form, all man with avian features and black wings folded against his back. Yasaka-sama, he acknowledged with a deep bow. The golden fox has revealed himself again, she stated. This time in Tokyo, interfering with devil affairs. Oboro nodded. Our sources confirm it. He defeated 7 devils of House Valifor who were attempting to claim territory from the Eastern Dragon, Ryuko. The power he displayed was significant and consistent with previous reports. Yes, my lady. Golden energy with characteristics of both fox and dragon, wielded with precision rather than raw force. He makes no attempt to hide his power, yet neither does he flaunt it unnecessarily. Yasaka considered this information, one elegant hand absently stroking her foremost tail. 5 years of sporadic appearances, always intervening in conflicts but never seeking recognition or power for himself. No allegiance to any known faction. She frowned slightly. It defies conventional behavior patterns for any supernatural entity. There are rumors, Oboro ventured carefully, that he may be connected to the ancient prophecy of the divine maelstrom. Yasaka's eyes sharpened. The maelstrom has not been spoken of in centuries, Oboro. Be cautious with such speculation. Forgive me, Yasaka-sama, but the signs align too closely to ignore. A golden fox wielding dragon's power, appearing from beyond our world. Intervening in conflicts without taking sides in larger factional disputes. The Tengu spread his hands. The ancient texts describe exactly such a harbinger. The 9-tailed fox leader rose gracefully, her formal Junihito kimono rustling with the movement. If, and I emphasize if, this stranger is connected to the prophecy, then his appearance now, when relations between the 3 factions are at their most strained in centuries, cannot be coincidence. She moved to a small pool of sacred water, waving a hand over its surface to reveal magical images of recent supernatural disturbances across Japan. The pattern of his interventions suggests he will soon encounter the Chaos Brigade's operations, she observed. Their experiments on kidnapped Yukai children would certainly draw his attention. Based on his established behavior, shall I dispatch observers to monitor the situation, my lady? Yasaka considered for a moment before shaking her head. No, if he is what the prophecy suggests, ordinary observers would be detected immediately. She touched an ornate kanzashi hair ornament, which glowed briefly with fox fire. I will assess this golden fox myself. Oboro's eyes widened. Yasaka-sama, the risk is necessary, she completed firmly. If the divine maelstrom prophecy is indeed unfolding, the Yukai faction cannot afford to stand idle or rely on second-hand information. Her 9 tails swayed with subtle agitation. Besides, If he truly carries the essence of a nine-tailed fox alongside dragon power, I am the only one who can properly evaluate his nature and intentions. The Tengu bowed deeply, recognizing his lady's resolve. When will you depart? The Hokkaido information suggests 3 days until the Chaos Brigade moves there. Specimens, Yasaka replied. I will observe his response to that situation. It should prove most illuminating. As dawn approached, casting Tokyo in hues of gold and amber, Naruto completed his meditation. The brief connection he'd felt with the cosmic entity, Great Red, according to Ryuko's explanation, had confirmed what he'd suspected for some time. His presence in this dimension was not going unnoticed by its most powerful beings. The scroll provided by Kuroka lay open before him, its contents memorized and its authenticity assessed. Whatever the Nekoshu's ulterior motives, the information about kidnapped Yukai children appeared genuine. The thought of young supernatural beings subjected to experiments stirred deep-seated anger rooted in his own childhood experiences and memories of Orochimaru's victims. Decision made, he rose and prepared for departure. The household was quiet, though he sensed Ryuko was awake and aware of his movements. A dragon's perception was difficult to evade, even for someone with his stealth training. As he stepped into the main room, she appeared, now dressed in a simpler yukata of deep emerald. You're leaving, she stated rather than asked. Yes, Naruto confirmed. I need to verify Kuroka's information about the kidnapped children. Ryuko nodded, unsurprised. You should know that involving yourself in this matter will likely draw attention from multiple factions. The Chaos Brigade is not a simple organization, it has connections to various mythological systems and supernatural powers. I'm used to complicated enemies, Naruto replied with a slight smile. In my world, I dealt with organizations like the Akatsuki, S-rank missing nin with abilities that could destroy entire nations. This world has its equivalents, Ryuko warned. Gods and demons, angels and devils, dragons and spirits of immense power. Many will see you as either threat or opportunity. Naruto appreciated her concern but had long since accepted the reality of his situation in this dimension. I can't stand by when children are in danger, regardless of the political complications. The dragon studied him with ancient eyes that had witnessed centuries of supernatural conflicts. Your power is substantial, Uzumaki Naruto, but even you have limitations. Be cautious with how widely you reveal your abilities. I will, he promised. And thank you for your hospitality and information. Ryuko inclined her head formally. My residence remains open to you should you need sanctuary. A dragon's gratitude is not offered lightly. As Naruto prepared to depart, she added. Regarding Kyoto's interest in you, consider making contact with Yasaka Heim directly rather than waiting for her agents to approach you. Nine-tailed foxes appreciate directness, and she may prove a valuable ally in understanding how your fox energy functions in this world. With a final exchange of respectful bows, Naruto departed the dragon's hidden sanctuary. As the magical barriers closed behind him, returning the property to its camouflaged state, he leapt to a nearby rooftop and gazed northward. Hokkaido lay hundreds of kilometers distant, but distance was merely a technical challenge. Rather than an obstacle for someone trained in the shinobi arts and enhanced by the power he now wielded. Golden energy flickered around his form as he channeled precise amounts of power to enhance his speed and endurance. With a final glance at Tokyo's awakening skyline, Uzumaki Naruto, former shinobi of Konoha, current anomaly in the supernatural world, disappeared in a flash of golden light, moving north with purpose and determination. Unknown to him, multiple entities had already begun to move in response to the night's events, pieces on a cosmic chessboard shifting into new configurations. The prophecy of the divine maelstrom had begun to unfold. High above, in the space between dimensions, Great Red's vast consciousness noted the golden signature moving north and adjusted its own cosmic attention accordingly. In Kyoto, Yasaka summoned her most trusted advisors to prepare for her journey, and in a hidden location, a pale-haired figure with a cruel smile received reports of the encounter between Naruto and the Valifor devils. So, Rizvam Levon Lucifer mused, the anomaly continues to interfere in our affairs. How fascinating. He tapped long fingers against an ancient DxD that depicted a golden fox wreathed in draconic energy. Perhaps it's time we arranged a more direct evaluation of this curious being. The wheels of prophecy had begun to turn. The fox walked among dragons. And the supernatural world would never be the same. Chapter 1 End Chapter 2, Kyoto's Golden Guardian. Dawn painted Hokkaido's wilderness in watercolor hues as Naruto surveyed the aftermath of the raid. The Chaos Brigade transport lay in smoking ruins, twisted metal and shattered magical barriers scattered across the forest clearing. 3 young Nekosho children huddled together beneath a protective barrier of golden energy, their wide eyes reflecting both fear and cautious hope as they watched their rescuer. "You're safe now," Naruto assured them, his voice gentle despite the destruction he'd unleashed minutes earlier. The children, none older than 10 years, bore the unmistakable marks of magical experimentation, seal patterns etched into their skin, reminiscent of Jinchuriki markings from his own world. The youngest, a girl with silver hair and trembling black ears, looked up at him with tearful amber eyes. "Are you taking us back to Kyoto?" Naruto knelt beside them, careful to move slowly. "Yes, there are people there who can help you." He'd confirmed through Ryuko's contacts that Kyoto's yokai faction had been searching for these children since their abduction 3 months ago. "You have fox smell," observed the oldest boy, his nose twitching. "But different, stronger." Naruto smiled. "I'm a different kind of fox. But I'm a friend to all yokai children." The raid had been more complex than Kuroka's intelligence suggested. The Chaos Brigade's security included not just devil enforcers but also fallen angels and human magicians, an unusual coalition had hinted at broader significance to their experiments. Most troubling were the magical restraints used on the children, designed to extract and analyze their natural senjutsu abilities. As he gathered the children to prepare for travel, Naruto sensed a familiar presence materializing from shadow at the edge of the clearing. My, Kuroka purred as she sauntered into view. "You certainly don't believe in subtle approaches." Her golden eyes surveyed the devastation with evident approval. "Not that I'm complaining about the results." Naruto maintained the protective barrier around the children, who tensed at the newcomer's appearance. "Your information was accurate, though incomplete. You didn't mention the fallen angel contingent." Kuroka shrugged, an elegant roll of shoulders beneath her kimono. "An oversight, perhaps. Intelligence gathering has its limitations." Her expression softened slightly as she gazed at the children. "They're alive. That's what matters." The silver-haired girl peered around Naruto's leg. "Are you Nekosho too, like us?" Kuroka's usual playfulness faltered momentarily. "Yes, little one, like you." She approached cautiously, kneeling to the children's level. "There aren't many of us left. You're very precious." The interaction revealed a gentleness Naruto hadn't expected from the seemingly self-serving yokai. As Kuroka checked the children for injuries, her clinical efficiency suggested medical knowledge beyond what her carefree persona would indicate. "The extraction seals are still active," she observed, examining markings on the oldest boy's arm. "They need specialized treatment to remove them safely." "In Kyoto?" Naruto asked. Kuroka nodded, unusually serious. "Yasaka has healers trained in counteracting such magics. I'd do it myself, but..." She gestured at the complex pattern. "These are beyond my expertise." "Then we leave immediately." Naruto gathered the smallest child, who instinctively curled against his chest. "Are you coming with us?" A shadow passed over Kuroka's features. "I can't enter Kyoto openly. My status as a stray devil makes me unwelcome in certain yokai territories." Her smile returned, though it didn't reach her eyes. "But I'll find you there, Naruto-kun. A Nekosho has ways of moving unseen." She brushed gentle fingers across each child's head before melting back into shadow with a fin. Cryptic comment. "Yasaka has been quite curious about you. Don't be surprised if your reception is elaborate." The journey to Kyoto took less than a day with Naruto's enhanced speed, though he moderated his pace for the children's comfort. As they approached the ancient capital from the north, he sensed the layered protective barriers surrounding the city, magical wards far more sophisticated than those used by the devils in Tokyo. Where Tokyo hummed with the chaotic energy of millions of humans and scattered supernatural entities, Kyoto resonated with centuries of accumulated spiritual power. The city's ley lines, channels of natural energy, formed intricate patterns beneath its streets and shrines, creating a mystical infrastructure as complex as its physical one. Naruto paused atop a wooded hill overlooking the city, allowing the children a moment to rest while he studied these energy flows. Even after 5 years in this world, the unique spiritual ecosystem of Kyoto impressed him. Here, the boundary between the human world and yokai realm thinned almost to transparency in certain locations. "We're home," whispered the middle child, a boy with russet hair and ears that twitched with emotion. "I didn't think we'd ever see it again." As sunset approached, transforming Kyoto's landscape into a mosaic of amber and shadow, Naruto detected movement in the forest around them, swift, coordinated, and deliberately visible to his enhanced senses. A courtesy, he realized. They were being welcomed rather than ambushed. 7 figures emerged from the trees, wearing trady Chional Hakama and Haori in varied colors, their yokai features visible rather than concealed. A Tengu with black wings folded against his back, twin Kappa with scaled green skin, a Tanuki with distinctive markings around his eyes, and 3 Kitsune of different colorations, each bearing multiple tails, 3, 4, and 5 respectively. The Tengu stepped forward, bowing formally. "Uzumaki Naruto Dono. I am Oboro, chief advisor to Yasaka Haim. We have been expecting you." Naruto returned the bow, noting the children's visible relief at seeing familiar yokai. "The children require immediate medical attention. They bear extraction seals that remain active." Oboro's expression darkened. "Despicable." He gestured, and the 5-tailed Kitsune approached, her hands already glowing with healing energy. "We have prepared for their treatment," Oboro assured Naruto as the Kitsune examined the children with gentle efficiency. "Yasaka Haim has awaited their return, and your arrival, with great anticipation." "I'm surprised my presence was anticipated," Naruto remarked, carefully watching the interaction between the healer and children. Oboro's avian features remained impassive, but his eyes reflected knowing amusement. "Your activities have not gone unnoticed, Naruto Dono. Particularly given their vulpine nature." The Tengu gestured toward the city. "If you would follow us. Yasaka Haim awaits at Fushimi Inari Shrine." Their procession moved through the forest and into the city through pathways hidden from human perception, an alternative Kyoto that existed alongside, yet separate from the version tourists photographed. Magnificent torii gates, their vermilion paint catching the last rays of sunset, marked transitions between increasingly sacred spaces. As they ascended the mountain path toward Fushimi Inari, Naruto observed that the spiritual energy grew more concentrated. Fox statues guarding the path seemed to watch their progress with eerily aware stone eyes. The highest slopes of Mount Inari, he realized, existed partially in a separate dimension, a pocket realm where yokai could exist in their true forms without human intrusion. "The human shrine ends below," Oboro explained as they passed through a final torii gate that shimmered with boundary magic. "Beyond this point lies the true court of Inari and Yasaka Haim's residence." The landscape transformed dramatically. Where the human shrine featured modest buildings amid forested slopes, the yokai realm revealed a magnificent complex of traditional architecture that would have rivaled the imperial palace in its heyday. Cherry trees in perpetual bloom lined pathways paved with luminescent stone. Yokai of various species moved purposefully through courtyards and gardens, many pausing to observe Naruto with undisguised curiosity. At the complex's heart stood a palace of traditional design but supernatural scale, its curved roofs adorned with golden ornaments that caught ethereal light from paper. Lanterns floating without support through the evening air. "Impressive," Naruto commented genuinely, sensing the millennia of accumulated power within this hidden realm. Oboro inclined his head in acknowledgement. "The seat of yokai governance in Japan since the Heian era. While our influence in the human world has diminished, here we maintain our traditions unchanged." They were led through a series of increasingly ornate courtyards, eventually arriving at a garden where a small stream wound between carefully arranged stones and meticulously pruned trees. A pavilion stood at its center, open on all sides to the evening breeze. Illuminated by fox fire lanterns of blue-white light. "Please wait here," Oboro instructed as attendants guided the children toward a separate building where healing would be administered. "Yasaka Haim will join you shortly." Left alone in the pavilion, Naruto took the opportunity to center himself, extending his senses to better understand this unique environment. The natural energy here flowed differently than anywhere else he'd experienced in this world, more refined, as if shaped by centuries of deliberate cultivation. "You appreciate our energy flows," observed a melodic female voice. Few visitors noticed them so quickly. Naruto turned to find a woman standing at the pavilion's edge. His first impression was of extraordinary presence rather than merely physical beauty. Though she possessed that in abundance. Tall and gracefully proportioned, she wore a traditional Junihito kimono of gold and white silk, layered with exquisite precision. Her golden blonde hair fell in elaborate arrangement, adorned with ornamental kanzashi that chimed softly with her movements. Most striking were her eyes, amber with vertical pupils, radiating intellect, and power, and the 9 magnificent fox tails that spread behind her like a fan of golden white fur tipped with black. Naruto rose and bowed with formal respect. Yasaka Haim, thank you for receiving me. Yasaka entered the pavilion with measured steps, her multiple layers of silk whispering against the wooden floor. As she moved closer, Naruto sensed the immense power contained within her power that resonated with his own in unexpected ways. Uzumaki Naruto, she replied, studying him with unabashed intensity. The golden fox who walks like a dragon. She gestured to a seating where attendants had silently arranged tea ceremony implements. Please, join me. They knelt opposite each other as a silver-haired kitsune attendant performed the tea ceremony with ritualistic precision. Throughout the elaborate process, Yasaka maintained dignified silence, her gaze never leaving Naruto's face. When the attendant withdrew, leaving them with perfectly prepared matcha, Yasaka finally spoke. For 5 years, reports have reached me of a golden-haired stranger with unusual fox energy intervening in supernatural conflicts across Japan. Always helping the weaker party, never seeking reward or allegiance. She sipped her tea with deliberate grace. Now you appear at my doorstep with 3 kidnapped Nekosho children. A most interesting introduction. The children needed help, Naruto replied simply. Kyoto was their home. Indeed. Yasaka's tails shifted slightly, betraying emotion her face did not. We have searched for them since their abduction. Their safe return has earned you considerable goodwill among the yokai factions. Her head tilted slightly, though I wonder why you did not approach us directly before now. Naruto considered his response carefully. I've tried to avoid entanglement in factional politics. My experience with supernatural governance in this world has been mixed. A subtle smile curved Yasaka's lips. Diplomatic. But we both know there's more. She set down her teacup with precise movement. Your energy signature is unique in this world. It carries fox characteristics similar to my own, yet intertwined with something distinctly draconic, and beneath that, something else entirely, something not native to our reality. The directness of her assessment confirmed what Ryuko had suggested. Yasaka had been gathering intelligence on him for some time. I'm not from this dimension originally, Naruto acknowledged, seeing little benefit in concealing what she had already deduced. In my world, I was a shinobi, a ninja, who contained the spirit of a 9-tailed fox named Kurama. Yasaka's eyes widened slightly, the first break in her composed demeanor. A 9-tailed kitsune spirit. As a separate entity, not exactly kitsune as you would understand it. Naruto explained. The biju, tailed beasts, were manifestations of primordial chakra, each with different numbers of tails representing their power level. Kurama was the strongest with 9 tails. And this spirit was, inside you. Her tails bristled slightly, suggesting this concept disturbed her. Naruto nodded. I was born as his Jinchuriki, his living prison. Though eventually we became partners rather than prisoner and jailer. A shadow of old pain crossed his features. When I was pulled into this dimension during a battle, his consciousness didn't survive intact. But his power merged completely with mine. Yasaka listened with remarkable intensity, absorbing details that would seem fantastic to most beings. And the draconic element I sense. That came after, Naruto explained. When I arrived here, my chakra, my energy, began adapting to this world's natural laws. It somehow resonated with draconic power, transforming into something new. Fascinating, Yasaka murmured. It would explain why Great Red has taken notice of your existence. Naruto stiffened slightly. You know about that. The movements of the dragon of dragons rare. Lee escaped notice of those attuned to such things, Yasaka replied. Her expression became more measured. Your arrival in our world corresponds with certain prophecies known to the eldest yokai. Before she could elaborate, the pavilion doors slid open to admit a young girl who appeared to be around 12 years old. She wore a simplified version of Yasaka's traditional attire, her golden hair arranged in a ponytail. And behind her swayed a single golden white fox tail. "Mother!" the girl exclaimed, before noticing Naruto and adopting a more formal posture. "Forgive my intrusion. I heard the Nekosho children had been rescued." "Kuno," Yasaka acknowledged with gentle reproach at the interruption, though affection warmed her tone. "Yes, they have been returned safely, thanks to our guest." She gestured toward Naruto. "This is Uzumaki Naruto Dono, who freed them from the Chaos Brigade." Kuno turned toward Naruto, beginning a formal bow that froze halfway as her eyes widened in shock. Her nose twitched rapidly, and her single tail went rigid. "You smell like. She struggled to articulate what her senses detected. "Kuno," her mother cautioned, but the young kitsune had already bounded forward with supernatural speed, stopping directly before Naruto to examine him with unabashed curiosity. "You have fox power like mothers," she declared with childlike directness. "But also something else. Something big and scary and sad." Her head tilted in confusion. "How can power feel sad?" Naruto smiled at her perceptiveness. "Sometimes power comes with difficult memories," he explained gently. Kuno nodded as if this made perfect sense. "The Nekosho children said you protected them with golden light. Can I see?" "Kuno, such directness is inappropriate," Yasaka began. But Naruto raised a hand respectfully. "It's all right," he assured her before addressing Kuno. "A small demonstration only, as a thank you for your welcome." He extended his palm, allowing a small sphere of golden energy to materialize above it. Within the sphere, 9 tiny tails of light spun in continuous motion. Kuno gasped in delight, her own tail swishing with excitement. "It feels warm and safe," she observed, leaning closer to the manifestation. "Like mother's power but wilder." Yasaka watched the interaction with careful attention, her tails betraying greater interest than her composed features. "Kuno has exceptional sensitivity to energy signatures," she explained. "A trait that will serve her well when she eventually succeeds me." The young kitsune reluctantly stepped back as Naruto dissipated the energy sphere. "Will you be staying in Kyoto, Naruto-sama?" she asked hopefully. "I haven't decided," Naruto replied honestly, glancing at Yasaka. "I was able to extend an invitation to remain as our honored guest," Yasaka stated, her formal tone failing to completely mask her own interest. "The yokai of Kyoto would welcome the opportunity to express our gratitude for the children's return. Additionally," she continued more cautiously, "there are matters of mutual concern we might discuss regarding the increased activities of the Chaos Brigade against yokai targets." The diplomatic phrasing didn't obscure her strategic interest in both his abilities and his intelligence about recent supernatural conflicts. Naruto recognized the political calcula. Behind the courtesy, Yasaka was responsible for protecting her people in an increasingly dangerous supernatural landscape. "I would be honored to accept your hospitality," Naruto replied with equal diplomacy. "And I'm happy to share what I've learned about the Chaos Brigade's operations." Kuno beamed with undisguised pleasure at this response. "Excellent. I can show you the secret gardens tomorrow, and the ancient library. And the training grounds where the guard practices." "Kuno," Yasaka interrupted with gentle firmness, "Naruto Dono will need rest after his journey. Your tour can wait until he has recovered." The young kitsune pouted momentarily before recovering her formal demeanor. "Of course, mother. I apologize for my enthusiasm, Naruto-sama." "No apology needed," Naruto assured her with a warm smile. "I look forward to your tour when time permits." Yasaka summoned attendants who appeared silently at the pavilion's edge. "Please show Naruto Dono to the Maple Pavilion and ensure all his needs are met." To Naruto, she added, "Rest well. Tomorrow evening, we will hold a formal reception to honor your rescue of the Nekosho children. We can discuss more substantive matters afterward." As Naruto followed the attendants, he heard Kuno's excited whisper to her mother. "He feels like family, doesn't he, mother? His energy, it's like ours but different." Yasaka's hushed response was too quiet to catch, but her thoughtful gaze followed Naruto until he disappeared from view. The Maple Pavilion proved to be an exquisite guest residence nestled against a hillside, offering panoramic views of both the yokai realm and, through some trick of dimensional overlapping, the lights of modern Kyoto in the distance. Traditional in design with modern comforts discreetly incorporated. It reflected the yokai faction's blend of ancient tradition and pragmatic adaptation. After bathing and changing into a yukata provided by his hosts, Naruto meditated on the pavilion's veranda. Processing the day's experiences, Yasaka had revealed interest beyond mere political calculation. Something about his nature clearly resonated with her own in ways neither fully understood yet. His meditation was interrupted by a familiar presence materializing from shadow at the garden's edge. "Impressive accommodations," Kuroka observed, sauntering into view as if strolling through tea. The most secure yokai stronghold in Japan were perfectly normal. The Maple Pavilion is reserved for the most honored guests. Naruto opened one eye. "I thought you couldn't enter Kyoto openly." "I said, openly," she corrected with a mischievous smile, stretching languorously before settling beside him. "Shadows exist even in the most sacred spaces, Naruto-kun." "The children?" he asked, focusing on what mattered. Kuroka's playfulness softened. "Recovering well. The extraction seals have been neutralized, though they'll bear the marks for life." She studied him with unusual seriousness. "Why?" Ove made quite an impression on Yasaka Haim. "Being invited to stay in her personal domain is unprecedented for an outsider." "She's curious about my connection to Fox Energy," Naruto replied, deliberately understating the situation. Kuroka laughed softly. "Curious is putting it mildly. The nine-tailed queen has been tracking rumors of you for years." She leaned closer, her golden eyes gleaming in the lantern light. "Word in the shadows is that some of the elder yokai believe you fulfill an ancient prophecy, something about a golden maelstrom that would unite fox and dragon power." Naruto frowned slightly. "I've never put much stock in prophecies." "Whether you believe in them doesn't matter," Kuroka observed shrewdly. "What matters is who else believes." She glanced toward the main palace complex. "Yasaka Haim rules the yokai factions through both power and tradition. A being who potentially embodies an ancient prophecy represents either validation of her leadership or a challenge to it, depending on how things unfold." This political dimension hadn't escaped Naruto's notice. "I have no interest in yokai politics or challenging anyone's leadership." "Intentions are irrelevant in prophecies," Kuroka countered, absently twirling one of her tails. "Your mere existence changes the balance, especially now that you've openly connected with Kyoto." She tilted her head curiously. "Did she mention the Abe no Seimei connection?" "No," Naruto replied, his interest piqued despite his skepticism. "What connection?" Kuroka's smile turned enigmatic. "Japan's most famous Onmai. Oji predicted that when the nine tails split and reunited across worlds, the age of hidden divisions would end." She shrugged elegantly. "Cryptic nonsense perhaps, but the timing of your arrival 5 years ago coincided with several astronomical phenomena that sent the divination-obsessed yokai into a frenzy." Before Naruto could press for details, Kuroka tensed suddenly, her ears swiveling toward the palace. "Company coming. Looks like I've outstayed my welcome." She rose fluidly. "Be careful, Naruto-kun. Prophecy or not, you've entered the most complex supernatural political landscape in Japan." With a wink, she melted into shadow moments before a knock sounded at the pavilion door. A silver-haired kitsune attendant bowed deeply when Naruto slid the door open. "Naruto Dono, forgive the late intrusion. Yasaka Haim has sent these gifts in anticipation of tomorrow's ceremony." She presented an elegant wooden box with the Kyoto yokai faction's emblem inlaid in gold. Inside lay formal, Japanese attire of exceptional quality. A kimono, haori, and hakama in deep blue with subtle golden embroidery depicting nine-tailed foxes among clouds. The craftsmanship suggested both considerable expense and symbolic significance. "Please convey my appreciation to Yasaka Haim," Naruto responded, recognizing the diplomatic gesture. The attendant bowed again. "Yasaka Haim also wishes to inform you that the Nekosho children have asked to see you before they sleep. If you are not too fatigued from your journey." Naruto immediately set aside the gift box. "Lead the way." The children had been housed in a small but elegant building near the healing chambers. When Naruto entered, all three looked up from their futons with expressions of relief. The silver-haired girl immediately scrambled over to him, her previously fearful demeanor replaced with cautious happiness. "You really did bring us home," she said, wonder in her voice. Naruto knelt to her level. "I promised, didn't I? How are you feeling?" "The nice fox ladies took away the burning marks," she explained, showing her arm where the extraction seals had been neutralized, though faint patterns remained. They said you're staying here too. For a little while, Naruto confirmed, checking each child carefully. Their spiritual energy was stabilizing, the damage from the experiments beginning to heal. The oldest boy watched him with solemn eyes. The lady with 9 tails said you have special fox power. Are you going to be our protector now? The question carried weight beyond its simple wording. These children had lost their families to persecution and experimentation. Their concept of safety had been fundamentally shattered. I'll make sure you're safe, Naruto promised, choosing his words carefully. And Yasaka Haim and all of Kyoto's yokai will protect you too. But you'll visit us, pressed the silver-haired girl. Even when we get adopted by new families. I will, Naruto assured her, recognizing the attachment forming after their shared ordeal. I keep my promises. That's my ninja way. This declaration seemed to satisfy them, and soon their exhaustion overtook their excitement. As they drifted to sleep, Naruto quietly exited, finding Oboro waiting outside. You've made quite an impression on them, the Tengu observed. Trauma victims, especially children, rarely trust so quickly. They're resilient, Naruto replied. But they'll need consistent support and protection. Oboro nodded gravely. They will receive both. The Nekosho are precious to all yokai, one of our most endangered species since the purges. He studied Naruto with analytical intensity. Yasaka Haim has assigned her personal guard detail to their protection. Your warning about potential retaliation from the Chaos Brigade is being taken very seriously. As they walked back toward the Maple Pavilion, Oboro provided more context about yokai politics, the balance between different species, territories beyond Kyoto, and the complex relationship with other supernatural factions. The 3 biblical factions, angels, fallen angels, and devils, have maintained an uneasy peace for centuries, the Tengu explained. But recent decades have seen increasing incursions into traditionally neutral territories. The Chaos Brigade represents a new threat, a coalition of disaffected members from various factions pursuing radical agendas, including experimentation on yokai children, Naruto noted grimly. Oboro's wings rustled with barely contained anger. Indeed, their interest in senjutsu, natural energy manipulation, has made certain yokai species targets. Nekosho, Kitsune, and Tengu particularly. The advisor's expression turned thoughtful. Which makes your own energy manipulation capabilities all the more significant. You utilize something similar to senjutsu, yet fundamentally different. In my world, we called it Sage Mode, Naruto explained. A technique for drawing in and balancing natural energy with physical and spiritual energy. Quote, fascinating, Oboro commented. Perhaps you might consider demonstrating these techniques during your stay. Our warriors could benefit from your perspective. And it might help us develop better defenses against the Chaos Brigade's methods. The request seemed reasonable on the surface, but Naruto recognized the underlying assessment. The yokai leadership wanted to better understand the full range of his abilities. I'd be happy to share non-destructive techniques, he responded diplomatically. Upon returning to the Maple Pavilion, Naruto found a meal had been prepared in his absence, traditional dishes arranged with artistic precision. As he ate, he contemplated the complex situation he'd entered. Yasaka's interest, the prophecy mentioned by both Ryuko and Kuroka, the children's attachment, and the broader implications of the Chaos Brigade's activities all suggested his involvement with Kyoto would not be easily concluded. Before sleeping, he extended his senses across the yokai realm, mapping its energy flows and security measures. Despite Kuroka's easy infiltration, the defenses were impressive. Layered barriers designed to repel different types of supernatural intrusion. Yet he detected subtle weaknesses, particularly at the boundaries where the yokai realm overlapped with human Kyoto. Morning brought Kuno's promised tour, the young Kitsune arriving at dawn with barely contained enthusiasm. Despite her youth, she proved knowledgeable about Kyoto's history and yokai traditions, guiding Naruto through gardens, training grounds, libraries, and shrines with engaging commentary. This is where the guard practices, she explained as they entered a large clearing where yokai of various species engaged in combat drills, blending traditional martial arts with supernatural abilities. Mother says I need to master basic forms before learning advanced techniques, but I've already figured out fox fire manifestation. She demons. Traded by summoning a small blue flame to her palm, her expression simultaneously proud and seeking approval. Impressive control for your age, Naruto commented genuinely, earning a beaming smile. Throughout the tour, Naruto noticed they were both being observed discreetly by Yasaka's guards. Protection for Kuno, certainly, but also assessment of his interactions with the future leader. Moth. R rarely takes personal interest in visitors, Kuno confided as they rested in a maple grove. But she's been asking about you for years whenever reports came in about the Golden Fox stranger. Has she? Naruto prompted gently, curious about Yasaka's perspective. Kuno nodded eagerly. She even sent special observers when you fought those fallen angels in Okinawa last year. And she has a who?la collection of scrolls about prophecies that might relate to you. The young kitsune leaned closer, lowering her voice conspiratorially. I think she's excited that you're finally here, though she pretends to be all formal and diplomatic about it. This unfiltered insight into Yasaka's thoughts was illuminating. Before Naruto could inquire further, however, a five-tailed kitsune messenger approached with formal deference. Kuno-sama, Naruto Dono, Yasaka Haim requests your presence for the afternoon preparation ritual before this evening's reception. The preparation ritual proved to be an elaborate ceremonial bathing and dressing process, with Naruto guided to a separate male bathing chamber where attendants stood ready to assist, an honor he politely declined, preferring to maintain his privacy. The formal attire provided earlier fit perfectly, the materials and craftsmanship exceeding even the finest garments he'd encountered in the Five Nations. As sunset approached, the entire yokai realm seemed to vibrate with anticipation. Paper lanterns ignited with fox fire illuminated pathways leading to the central ceremonial grounds where a reception pavilion had been erected. Ndreds of yokai gathered in their finest attire, representing diverse species and regions far beyond Kyoto. Your rescue of the Nekosho children has drawn representatives from yokai factions across Japan. Oboro explained as he escorted Naruto toward the pavilion. Many see it as a sign of changing fortunes for our kind. The reception began with formal introductions as Yasaka, resplendent in ceremonial robes of gold and white, acknowledged delegations from various yokai territories. Naruto, positioned as the guest of honor, observed the subtle political currents flowing through the gathering. Some yokai leaders regarded him with open curiosity, others with careful neutrality, and a few with barely concealed wariness. When Yasaka finally introduced Naruto formally, a ripple of whispers passed through the assembled yokai. His title, Golden Guardian of the Nekosho, carried symbolic weight beyond the immediate rescue, implying protection for all endangered yokai species. The ceremonial portion transitioned to a more relaxed celebration with food, drink, music, and dance performances representing different yokai traditions. Throughout, Naruto found himself engaged in conversations with various faction representatives, all probing tactfully for information about his background, abilities, and intentions. The Tanuki clans of Shikoku would welcome your visit, offered a distinguished elderly Tanuki with elaborate facial markings. Our senjutsu traditions date back millennia and might complement your unique energy manipulation methods. A Tengu warlord from northern Honshu was more direct. If you ever tire of Kyoto's political labyrinth, the mountain clans would value your combat expertise. We face increasing incursions from both devil nobles and human development. Even yokai from Korean and Chinese traditions approached, suggesting the news of his abilities had spread far beyond Japan's borders. Throughout these interactions, Yasaka moved through the gathering with regal grace, maintaining appropriate distance while keeping Naruto peripherally within her awareness. Her 9 tails, displayed prominently rather than restrained as they had been during their private meeting, signaled her status to all present. As the celebration reached its peak, Naruto noticed a subtle shift in the atmosphere, a tension in the guards' movements, a tightening of Yasaka's expression as she spoke with Oboro in hushed tones. Extending his senses, he detected unfamiliar energy signatures approaching the barrier perimeter. He made his way casually toward Yasaka, timing Hi's approach to coincide with a momentary gap in her attention. "We have visitors," he murmured, pitching his voice for her ears alone. Her amber eyes flicked to his face, revealing no surprise at his awareness. Yes, at least 20 entities testing the southern barrier. Not a direct assault yet, but probing for weaknesses. The timing seems deliberate, Naruto observed. With most of Kyoto's leadership gathered in one location, the perimeter would be more vulnerable. Yasaka nodded slightly. Indeed, Oboro is reinforcing the guard rotation, but we cannot alarm the guests without evidence of imminent threat. I could investigate without drawing attention, Naruto offered. My shadow clones could cover multiple sectors simultaneously. Interest flickered in Yasaka's eyes at the mention of this technique. But she shook her head. Your conspicuous absence would be noted and potentially trigger the very panic we wish to avoid. She glanced toward a group of Kitsune guards. I've dispatched scouts. For now, we maintain the celebration while preparing contingencies. The calculated leadership decision impressed Naruto. Yasaka balanced vigilance with diplomatic necessity, refusing to allow potential threats to disrupt important political relationships. The celebration continued its scheduled progression, culminating in a traditional dance performance by 9 Kitsune representing the 9 celestial fox spirits of legend. As the dancers wove intricate patterns, their movements seemingly generating real fox fire that illuminated the pavilion in ethereal blue light, Naruto detected the first breach of the outer barrier. Yasaka sensed it simultaneously, her tail stiffening momentarily before she smoothly excused herself from a conversation with a Nekomata elder. With subtle hand gestures, she directed her guard to heightened readiness while maintaining the appearance of normalcy. The dance reached its crescendo, the 9 Kitsune converging to form a living representation of the 9-tailed fox of legend. When the attack began in earnest, multiple explosions erupted at the realm's boundaries, magical detonations designed to create chaos rather than direct damage. As guests reacted with confusion and alarm, Yasaka's voice rang out with supernatural clarity. Honored guests, please remain calm and follow the guard to the secure shelter. This is a precautionary measure only. Her controlled response prevented immediate panic, allowing the evacuation to proceed with relative order. As the guests were led away, Yasaka turned to Naruto, her diplomatic mask giving way to focused intensity. The pattern suggests a coordinated strike targeting multiple barrier anchors simultaneously, she stated. A strategy that requires intimate knowledge of our defenses. Inside information, Naruto concluded, his body already humming with battle-ready energy. Our long-term surveillance. Oboro arrived with grim news. Yasaka Heim, the attackers bear mixed signatures, devils, fallen angels. And something else we cannot identify. They're using barrier disruption techniques similar to those employed by the Chaos Brigade. Yasaka's eyes narrowed, targeting the Nekosho children, possibly, but the attack pattern suggests a different primary objective. They're converging toward the central shrine, not the healing quarters. Understanding dawned in Yasaka's expression. The Inari relics, sacred artifacts of immense power, Naruto surmised. A logical target for any faction seeking to weaken Kyoto's influence. Naruto Dono, Yasaka addressed him formally, I must defend the central shrine. Would you lend your strength to protecting the children and other vulnerable residents? Kuno will guide you to the inner sanctuary. The young Kitsune appeared at her mother's side, her earlier exuberance replaced by solemn determination. Though clearly frightened, she maintained composure befitting a future leader. Of course, Naruto agreed, recognizing both the strategic necessity and the trust implied in assigning him to protect her daughter and their most vulnerable citizens. As they prepared to separate, a massive explosion shook the entire realm, far more powerful than the previous distractions. Barrier energy flickered visibly across the sky as a section of the protective dome fractured. They've breached the primary barrier, Oboro reported tensely. Impossible without a barrier key, Yasaka finished, her expression hardening. We have betrayal within our ranks. No time remained for further discussion. With a nod to Naruto, Yasaka transformed her elaborate ceremonial robes into more practical battle attire with a flicker of fox fire. Golden energy erupted around her form as she summoned her full power, her 9 tails radiating with supernatural light. Protect them, she commanded before vanishing in a blur of movement toward the central shrine, accompanied by her elite guard. This way, Kuno urged, leading Naruto toward a hidden path behind the reception pavilion. The inner sanctuary connects to the escape tunnels. They moved swiftly through increasingly ancient sections of the complex, passing buildings that radiated centuries of accumulated power. Yokai attendants ushered civilians toward reinforced structures built into the mountainside. Naruto created a dozen shadow clones without breaking stride, dispatching them to secure the evacuation routes and gather intelligence on the attacker's movements. As the original continued following Kuno, information began flowing back as clones engaged peripheral intruders. The attackers moved with military precision, using specialized magical tools to counter specific yokai defenses. Their diverse composition, devils, fallen angels, and human magicians, Sugas, a coalition beyond normal Chaos Brigade operations. Most troublingly, some wielded weapons that specifically disrupted Foxfire and Senjutsu energy, technologies designed explicitly for combating Kyoto's defenses. They've been planning this for months, Naruto concluded as they reached a massive stone structure built directly into the mountain. Ancient seals covered its walls, and two nine-ta-I-led kitsune guards flanked its entrance. The inner sanctuary, Kuno explained as the guards verified their identities before allowing entry. The most secure location in Kyoto. Inside, several Ozen yokai had already gathered, primarily children, elderly, and healers attending to the 3 rescued Nekosho. The atmosphere vibrated with tension and fear barely held in check. Naruto immediately assessed the sanctuary's defenses. While impressive, they relied on the integrity of the main barrier system, now compromised. A dedicated assault could potentially breach the sanctuary within hours. Kuno-sama, he addressed the young kitsune formally, recognizing her authority in this situation. Your mother assigned me to defense. With your permission, I'd like to establish additional protections. The responsibility straightened Kuno's posture, her childish features settling into determined focus. Please proceed, Naruto-sama. What do you require? Space to work, and information about the sanctuary's existing defenses. While the head guard, a 7-tailed kitsune named Hisao, briefed him on the sanctuary's protective systems, Naruto's clones continued gathering intelligence throughout the complex. The scattered engagements painted a disturbing picture. The attackers were creating strategic chaos while a specialized strike team advanced toward the central shrine where Yasaka defended the Inari relics. Most concerning, one clone reported a powerful entity directing operations from outside the barrier, a figure shrouded in concealment magic that felt distinctly different from the other attackers. Working quickly, Naruto integrated his own protective techniques with the sanctuary's existing defenses. Using specialized sealing methods adapted from his world's fuinjutsu, he created a secondary barrier independent of Kyoto's main system. As he completed the final seal, a massive surge of power rippled through the entire realm, Yasaka unleashing her full might at the central shrine. The sanctuary trembled from the energy release, foxfire lanterns flickering wildly. Mother, Kuno whispered, fear bleeding through her composure. Naruto placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. She's incredibly powerful, she'll handle them. But his own shadow clones reported a troubling development. The attack on the central shrine appeared to be forcing Yasaka to expend massive amounts of energy defending the relics, while a second team approached from a different angle with what appeared to be specialized binding equipment. Not a theft attempt, Naruto realized with growing alarm. An assassination or capture operation. Kuno-sama, he addressed the young kitsune with urgent formality. The sanctuary is secure. I believe your mother may be the true target of this attack. With your permission, I'll go to assist her. Conflict played across Kuno's features, the duty to remain with her people versus concern for her mother. The inner sanctuary traditionally requires a royal presence to maintain its strongest defenses, she explained, the political reality warring with personal desire. Hisao stepped forward. Kuno-sama, I served as guardian to your grandmother before you were born. The defensive protocols allow for royal delegation of authority to the senior guardian in emergency situations. Decision crystallized in Kuno's eyes. Then as heir to Kyoto, I formally delegate sanctuary authority to Guardian Hisao. She turned to Naruto, her single tail bristling with determination. We will both go to help mother. Naruto started to object, but recognized both the political necessity, the yokai would follow their traditions even in crisis, and the futility of trying to leave her behind when she could simply follow. Stay close to me at all times, he instructed, receiving a solemn nod in response. They departed the sanctuary through a hidden passage Kuno revealed, ascending toward the surface via ancient tunnels illuminated by foxfire sconces. Naruto's remaining shadow clones converged toward the central shrine, sending continuous updates on the battle's progress. Yasaka was indeed under coordinated attack. While she defended the shrine with devastating displays of power, specialized units attempted to maneuver behind her defenses with equipment designed specifically to restrain a nine-tailed fox. As they emerged from the tunnel into a small shrine that served as its disguised exit, Naruto felt a massive discharge of power that momentarily illuminated the entire yokai realm with golden light. Yasaka had unleashed her most powerful attack, Fox Fire, sweeping across the central complex in purifying flames. But the enemy had anticipated this. As her energy momentarily ebbed following the massive release, Concealed Attack RS launched their specialized binding equipment, magical chains that absorbed Fox energy rather than resisting it. Through his clone's eyes, Naruto witnessed Yasaka falter as the first binding chain wrapped around one of her tails, immediately beginning to drain her power. 3 more chains followed before her guards could intercept, forcing her to her knees as her energy was systematically siphoned. "We need to move faster," Naruto told Kuno, gathering his energy. "Hold on to me." The young kitsune wrapped her arms around his neck, and Naruto activated his enhanced speed, Golden Energy Florida ring around them both as they moved through the battlefield with preternatural velocity. They arrived at the central shrine's outer perimeter to find chaos, fallen attackers and yokai defenders scat red across once immaculate grounds now cratered and burning. Oboro battled 3 fallen angels simultaneously, his wings damaged but his spirit unbroken as he wielded a naginata with lethal precision. At the shrine's center, partially visible through damaged walls, Yasaka struggled against 6 specialized binding chains now restricting her movement and draining her power. Despite this, she continued fighting, her tails lashing out with diminishing but still formidable fox fire. Naruto assessed the situation instantly. The chain wielders maintained formation around Yasaka, protected by a Seiko ND ring of combatants holding off the remaining yokai defenders. Behind them all, a figure cloaked in shadow directed the operation, the same presence his clone had detected earlier. "Kuno, stay with Oboro," Naruto instructed, depositing the young kitsune beside the Tengu, who immediately shifted his defense to include her. "But mother," Kuno protested. "I'll free her," Naruto promised, golden energy already building around his form. "Oboro, keep Kuno safe at all costs." The Tengu nodded grimly, understanding the priority of protecting the heir if Yasaka fell. Naruto's transformation knife stood fully, golden energy erupting around him in a brilliant aura, forming the spectral outline of a 9-tailed fox overlaid with draconic elements. The battlefield momentarily stilled as both attackers and defenders registered this new power. "Impossible," gasped one of the chain wielders, a fallen angel whose black wings contrasted with elaborate magical equipment strapped to her torso. Intelligence said nothing about a second 9-tailed entity. The shadowed commander's voice cut through the confusion. "Irrelevant. Complete the extraction. We need only 1 9 tails for the procedure." Naruto moved with lightning speed, his first target the chain wielders rather than their protectors. Conventional attacks might be deflected or absorbed by their specialized equipment, so he adapted, creating a Rasenshuriken infused with natural energy that targeted the magical circuits within the chains rather than the chains themselves. Wind Style Rasenshuriken, the spiraling disk of concentrated wind chakra, its edges serrated with microscopic blades of energy, sliced through the battlefield toward the nearest chain wielder. The fallen angel attempted to dodge, but Naruto's technique tracked her movement, detonating in a microscopic windstorm that shredded both her equipment and the binding chain it controlled. Similar precise attacks neutralized 3 more chains in rapid succession, each releasing their hold on Yasaka's dwindling energy. As her power began to recover, Yasaka seized the opportunity, focusing her remaining strength on the 2 chain wielders nearest the shrine. Fox fire erupted from her palms in concentrated streams, bypassing the protective ring to incinerate the specialized equipment. Free from the binding chains, Yasaka rose to her full height, her 9 tails fanning behind her with renewed golden light. Her eyes met Naruto's across the battlefield, a moment of perfect understanding passing between them. Without words, they synchronized their attacks. While Yasaka unleashed purifying fox fire across the protective ring's eastern flank, Naruto engaged the Western defenders with taijutsu enhanced by golden energy. His movements flowed like water, each strike precisely calculated to neutralize rather than kill when possible. The shadowed commander, recognizing the operation's collapse, attempted retreat. Yasaka immediately intercepted, her tails forming a barrier of golden energy to prevent escape. "You dare attack Kyoto's sanctuary?" Her voice carried supernatural authority, fox fire wreathing her form. "Identify yourself." Instead of answering, the figure cast aside their concealment magic, revealing a woman with silver hair and crimson eyes. Her aura pulsed with fallen angel energy, but corrupted by something darker that reminded Naruto of the cursed seal technology Orochimaru had developed. "This isn't over, Fox Queen," she snarled, a magic circle already forming beneath her feet. "The Chaos Brigade will have what we came for eventually." Before either could respond, the woman triggered a transportation circle far more powerful than standard teleportation magic. The resulting explosion of energy created a blinding flash and shockwave that momentarily disoriented both defenders and remaining attackers. When the light faded, the commander and several key operatives had vanished, though many rank and file attackers remained trapped within Kyoto's boundaries. "Mother!" Kuno broke from Oboro's protection, rushing toward Yasaka, who dropped to one knee to embrace her daughter despite her evident exhaustion. "I'm all right, little one," she assured Kuno, though the drain from the binding chains had clearly taken a toll. Naruto maintained his enhanced state, securing the perimeter while Oboro coordinated the yokai forces in capturing or dispatching the remaining attackers. Once immediate threats were neutralized, he approached Yasaka and Kuno. "The sanctuary remains secure," he reported. "But we hold verify the children's safety directly." Yasaka nodded, rising with regal bearing despite her fatigue. "Yes, and the Inari relics must be checked for tampering." She studied Naruto with new appreciation. "Your intervention was decisive. Those binding chains were specifically designed to drain and contain Fox-based energy. Yet your power bypassed their absorption mechanisms entirely. My energy signature is different enough from pure Fox energy to confuse specialized countermeasures," Naruto explained. "An advantage of my unique situation." As they moved toward the inner sanctuary to confirm the evacuees' safety, Yasaka continued, "Their tactics revealed intimate knowledge of our defenses and my personal abilities. The binding technology was custom designed for nine-tailed fox capture, suggesting either a traitor in Kyoto or long-term surveillance," Naruto concluded. "Or both," Yasaka agreed grimly. "More concerning is their objective." The commander mentioned an extraction procedure, requiring a nine tails. The implications chilled both of them. Whatever the Chaos Brigade planned, it specifically required the power of a nine-tailed fox, either Yasaka or, potentially, Naruto himself. The sanctuary evacuation reversed efficiently once security was re-established, with yokai returning to assess damages and begin repairs. The three Nekosho children immediately sought out Naruto upon his return, their earlier fears reawakened by the attack. "You protected us again," the silver-haired girl stated, clinging to his leg with unexpected fierceness. "As I promised," Naruto replied gently, kneeling to reassure all three. Hours later, after security had been fully restored and the most critical repairs initiated, Yasaka summoned Naruto to a private council deep within the central shrine complex. Unlike their previous meetings' formality, this space reflected crisis management. Maps of Kyoto's defenses displayed alongside magical monitoring systems, senior advisors including Oboro reviewing casualty and damage reports. "The Chaos Brigade has never attempted such a direct assault on a major yokai stronghold," Oboro was explaining as Naruto entered. "It represents a significant escalation of their operations." Yasaka, still in battle attire rather than her formal robes, acknowledged Naruto's arrival with a nod. "The timing cannot be coincidence," she stated. 3 days after Naruto Dono rescues Nekosho children from their facility, they launch an operation years in planning. "A contingency triggered by my interference," Naruto suggested, joining the council table. "Possibly," Yasaka agreed. "Or perhaps your arrival in Kyoto created an opportunity they'd been waiting for." She gestured to a captured piece of equipment, one of the binding chains, now inert. "This technology was designed specifically for my capture." Yet their commander spoke of needing only one 9 tails, suggesting you were recognized as an alternative target. The implications hung heavily in the chamber. Whatever the Chaos Brigade planned, it specifically required 9-tailed fox energy, a resource suddenly doubled with Naruto's appearance in Kyoto. There's more, Oboro added gravely. Prisoners' interrogation revealed this was not merely a Chaos Brigade operation. They were backed by elements from multiple factions, including a devil house with historical claims to Kyoto territory. Quote, House Valifor, Naruto concluded, remembering his encounter in Tokyo. Yasaka's eyes narrowed. Indeed, their representative implied as much during diplomatic exchanges last month. Though we dismissed it as typical devil posturing, her tales shifted with controlled anger. They've overplayed their hand with this direct assault. The council discussed mediate security measures and diplomatic responses, with Yasaka demonstrating impressive strategic acumen despite her recent ordeal. Throughout, Naruto observed the complex political considerations tempered even her justified outrage. Each potential response weighed against its impact on interfaction relations. When the council adjourned, Yasaka requested Naruto remain behind. As advisors departed, her formal demeanor softened slightly, revealing the toll the day had taken. I owe you my gratitude, she stated, pouring tea with her own hands rather than summoning attendants. Without your intervention, I would likely have been captured or killed. You would have done the same, Naruto replied, accepting the offered cup. The children were never their primary target. They used my RSQ operation to accelerate their timetable, and perhaps to evaluate your capabilities firsthand, Yasaka added, her amber eyes studying him with renewed interest. The Shadow Commander was transmitting magical observations throughout the battle. They sat in companionable silence for a moment, both processing the day's revelations. Yasaka's 9 tails, usually maintained in perfect arrangement, relaxed into more natural positioning, a small but significant display of trust. Kuno was very brave today, Naruto observed. She has her mother's strength. A genuine smile softened Yasaka's features. She admires you already. After seeing you fight to protect our people, that admiration will only grow. Her expression turned more serious. The attack has forced my hand politically. ICAN no longer maintain Kyoto's traditional neutrality if the Chaos Brigade and their allies specifically target 9-tailed foxes. You're considering formal alliance with other factions, Naruto surmised. Yasaka nodded. The yokai cannot stand alone against such coordinated attacks. We need allies with both political influence and military strength. She studied him thoughtfully. Your presence introduces unexpected possibilities. Quote, Naruto recognized the careful diplomatic approach. Because of the prophecy Kuroka mentioned. The Golden Maelstrom, uniting fox and dragon power. Surprise flickered briefly across Yasaka's features. The Nekosho is surprisingly well informed about our ancient texts. She sighed softly. Yes, there are prophecies that some interpret as describing your arrival. I've studied them extensively since reports of your activities began reaching Kyoto. And what do you believe? Naruto asked directly. Yasaka considered her response carefully. I believe an observable reality rather than mystical interpretation. And reality shows me a being of extraordinary power with both fox and dragon attributes who appears precisely when 9-tailed foxes are specifically targeted by multiple factions. Her tails shifted thoughtfully. Whether prophecy or coincidence, your presence changes calculations that have remained static for centuries. The conversation shifted to immediate concerns, enhanced security measures, Naruto's continued protection of the Nekosho children, and intelligence gathering regarding the Chaos Brigade's objectives. Throughout, Yasaka maintained professional focus, though Naruto sensed her evaluating him with greater personal interest than before their shared battle. As their discussion concluded, a messenger arrived with urgent news. Yasaka, we've captured an infiltrator attempting to access the Western Archives. A Nekosho. Kuroka, Naruto and Yasaka stated simultaneously. When the stray devil was brought before them, she displayed none of her usual playfulness. Impressive security upgrades, she commented, magical restraints binding her wrists. Pity they came after today's excitement. Why risk capture by entering Kyoto now? Yasaka demanded, especially given your status as a stray devil. Kuroka's golden eyes fixed on Naruto. Because I discovered what they want with 9-tailed fox energy. Her usual smirk faded to deadly seriousness. And why they were experimenting on Nekosho children as practice runs. Her revelation stunned both Naruto and Yasaka. The Chaos Brigade's research division had discovered references to an ancient ritual requiring both nine-tailed fox energy and senjutsu-compatible vessels to create controlled tears in dimensional barriers. They're trying to breach the dimensional gap, Kuroka explained, where Great Red dwells. The Nekosho children were test subjects for the smaller-scale version of the procedure that would eventually require a nine tails. Impossible, Yasaka breathed. Even with my power, such a ritual would kill you, Kuroka finished bluntly. The nine tails is consumed in the process. Which is why they were so excited to discover another nine-tailed entity had appeared in Japan. She glanced meaningfully at Naruto. How did you learn this? Naruto asked, suspicion tempering his concern. I have contacts in uncomfortable places, Kuroka replied enigmatically. Protecting my sister requires knowing what monsters like the Chaos Brigade are planning. Yasaka studied the Nekosho with narrowed eyes. If true, this represents a threat beyond faction politics. Breaching the dimensional gap without proper stabilization could destroy reality itself. Hence my dramatic entrance, Kuroka retorted. Self-preservation transcends political boundaries. The implications expanded with each moment of consideration. If the Chaos Brigade sought access to the dimensional gap where Great Red dwelled, their ambitions extended beyond mere power struggles to cosmic interference. We need to verify this information, Yasaka decided, though her expression suggested she found the scenario disturbingly plausible. And determine their timeline and capabilities. Kuroka's restraints were removed, though her movements would remain restricted within Kyoto's boundaries. As the Nekosho departed with Oboro to provide detailed intelligence, Yasaka turned to Naruto with grave concern. If accurate, this explains Great Red's increased attention to your existence. The Dragon of Dragons would naturally monitor any entity potentially involved in breaching its domain. Naruto nodded, remembering the massive presence he'd sensed watching from beyond reality. And it makes both of us primary targets for the Chaos Brigade. Yasaka's nine tails bristled with determination. Then perhaps prophecy has its place after all. If the ancient text spoke of fox and dragon power uniting against common threat, we would be fools to ignore such guidance. As night fell over Kyoto, repair crews worked by Foxfire Light to restore damaged structures while enhanced security patrols monitored the boundaries. In the Maple Pavilion, now Reinfo RCED with additional protective measures, Naruto meditated on the day's revelations. The attack had confirmed what he'd suspected since arriving in this world. His unique energy signature made him valuable and threatening to multiple factions. His involvement with Kyoto had accelerated conflicts brewing beneath the supernatural world's surface, potentially forcing confrontations that might otherwise have remained theoretical. Most concerning was the apparent connection to the dimensional gap in Great Red. If his arrival in this world somehow related to dimensional boundaries, the Chaos Brigade's interest in both him and Yasaka represented a threat far beyond political machinations. A soft knock interrupted his meditation. Opening the door revealed Kuno, clutching a small wooden X figurine and looking uncharacteristically hesitant. Kuno-chan, is everything all right? The young kitsune fidgeted slightly. I couldn't sleep. Mother is still in emergency council, and I kept inking about those people trying to take her away. Understanding immediately, Naruto invited her inside. It's natural to feel scared after what happened today. Even the bravest warriors feel fear. Kuno settled beside him, her single tail wrapping around herself for comfort. You weren't afraid. You glowed with golden light and saved everyone. I was definitely concerned, Naruto corrected gently. Fear helps us recognize danger. The trick is not letting it control our actions. They talked quietly about courage, responsibility, and the burden of power, concepts Kuno grappled with as heir to Kyoto's leadership. Gradually, her anxiety subsided, replaced by thoughtful consideration. Mother says you're from another world entirely, she ventured eventually. Is that why your energy feels both familiar and different? Naruto nodded. In my world, I contained the spirit of a nine-tailed fox named Kurama. When I came here, his power merged with mine and adapted to this world's energy. That's why you feel like family. Kuno concluded with childlike certainty. You're carrying a nine tails inside you, just differently than mother carries hers. The simple observation contained profound insight. Before Naruto could respond, Yasaka appeared at the doorway, apparently having concluded her emergency council. "Kuno," she chided gently, "you should be resting, not bothering our guest." "She's no bother," Naruto assured her. "We were discussing courage and responsibility." Yasaka's expression softened as she observed her daughter's more relaxed demeanor. "Important topics indeed." She extended her hand. "Come, little one, it's time for proper sleep." As Kuno rose to join her mother, she impulsively hugged Naruto. "Thank you for saving mother today," she whispered. "Please stay in Kyoto. We need you." The simple sincerity of her request carried weight beyond political calculations or prophetic interpretations. After she departed with Yasaka, Naruto returned to his meditation. But with shifted perspective, he had avoided deep connections since arriving in this dimension, conscious of his anomalous status and the complications his power could create. Yet today's events demonstrated that isolation offered no protection, neither for himself nor for those who might be targeted because of their connection to Fox energy. If the Chaos Brigade sought Nine-Tailed Fox power for dimensional manipulation, both he and Yasaka represented irreplaceable resources for their plans. Their shared danger created a natural alliance transcending political considerations. Later that night, as Kyoto settled into uneasy recovery, intelligence reports confirmed Kuroka's alarming claims. Ancient texts in Kyoto's archives referenced similar rituals attempted centuries earlier, dimensional manipulation requiring Nine-Tailed Fox energy as a catalyst. More disturbing was the identity of the Shadow Commander who had directed the attack. Yasaka's agents identified her as Lavinia Raynor, a fallen angel researcher specializing in sacred gear extraction and modification, precisely the expertise needed for adapting ancient rituals to modern magical technology. Most significant was the confirmation that the operation had been jointly planned by the Chaos Brigade and House Valifor, with support from fallen angel splinter groups. This coalition suggested coordination far beyond typical supernatural faction disputes. In the darkened archives where this intelligence was compiled, Yasaka and Naruto reviewed the findings with growing concern. "They will try again," Yasaka stated with certainty. "Today's failure will only refine their approach." Naruto nodded grimly. "And next time they'll account for both of us." Their eyes met in the foxfire light, mutual understanding transcending words. Whatever prophecies might suggest, practical reality demanded cooperation against a threat targeting them both specifically. "Then we prepare accordingly," Yasaka decided. Her Nine-Tails manifestation of her resolve. Beginning tomorrow, Kyoto mobilizes fully. As they departed the archives, neither noticed the slight distortion in reality near the ceiling, a temporary thinning of dimensional barriers through which massive, crimson eyes briefly observed their conversation before vanishing back into the gap. Great Red had taken direct interest in developments that threatened its domain. The Dragon of Dragons watched the Golden Fox with growing attention, assessing whether prophecy would manifest as salvation or threat to cosmic order. The wheels of prophecy continued turning. Fox and dragon power had begun to align, and the supernatural world trembled at the implications. Chapter 2 and Chapter 3, Shadows of the Nekosho. A month had passed since the attack on Kyoto. The ancient capital's wounds had largely healed, visible damage repaired through diligent work and magical restoration. Yet beneath the surface, fundamental changes rippled through yokai society. Guard rotations doubled. Ancient wards, dormant for centuries, glowed with renewed power. Diplomatic missions traveled to supernatural factions previously considered rivals. Naruto observed these transformations from his position as an honored guest who had gradually become something more: unofficial protector, strategic advisor, and training mentor to Kyoto's defense forces. The Maple Pavilion remained his residence, though he spent little time there between patrol rotations, training sessions, and security consultations. Dawn found him at Kyoto's eastern border, perched atop a massive Torii gate that marked the boundary between human and yokai domains. Golden energy hummed beneath his skin as he extended his senses, scanning for anomalies in the layered barriers Yasaka had reinforced after the attack. "Always working, Naruto-kun," a familiar silky voice called from behind him. "All vigilance and no play makes for a dreadfully dull fox god." Kuroka materialized from morning shadows. Her black kimono replaced with more practical attire, form-fitting dark garments that offered freedom of movement while still managing to accentuate her curvaceous figure. The month in Kyoto had changed her too. Still officially restricted to the yokai capital as a security consultant, rather than prisoner, she'd gradually shifted from reluctant informant to active participant in defensive preparations. The wards need regular checking, Naruto replied, continuing his inspection without turning. Especially after yesterday's probe attempt. Kuroka settled beside him, her twin tails swaying lazily behind her. 3 minor devils with outdated ward breakers. Hardly worth disrupting your meditation for. She studied him with golden eyes that missed nothing. You're pushing yourself too hard. Even with your ridiculous stamina, maintaining shadow clones across all sectors while personally patrolling 18 hours daily will eventually deplete even your reserves. Her observation was accurate, if unwelcome. Sleep had become a luxury Naruto permitted himself only when absolutely necessary, his mind too preoccupied with security vulnerabilities, intelligence reports, and training programs. I've functioned with less rest during wartime, he countered, finally meeting her gaze. Kuroka's usual playfulness dimmed. This isn't wartime yet, Naruto. It's preparation. Burning yourself out before the real conflict begins helps no one. Her voice carried genuine concern beneath its teasing lilt. Yasaka Haim agrees. By the way, she sent me to drag you to breakfast. Apparently, refusing 9 consecutive meal invitations borders on diplomatic insult. Naruto winced slightly. He hadn't intended discourtesy, but Yasaka's formal invitations always seemed to arrive when he was midway through critical tasks. Fine, he conceded, completing his scan before standing. But we need to adjust the Eastern Barrier's resonance frequency. It's drifting out of alignment with the central ward matrix. Kuroka rolled her eyes expressively. I'll notify the barrier technicians. Now come before Yasaka decides I've failed in my diplomatic mission and restricts my already limited freedoms. They traveled through Kyoto's hidden pathways, avoiding the bustle of early morning activity. Though Kuroka remained technically under surveillance, her movements within the yokai capital had become increasingly unrestricted as she proved her value to defensive operations. Her encyclopedic knowledge of devil security systems and fallen angel detection methods had closed critical vulnerabilities in Kyoto's protections. You're unusually insistent about this breakfast, Naruto observed as they approached the administrative compound where Yasaka conducted official business. Kuroka's expression revealed nothing. Perhaps I simply enjoy watching you and our illustrious 9-tailed leader engage in your peculiar dance of formal politeness masking mutual fascination. Before Naruto could respond to this deliberate provocation, they were greeted by Oboro, whose usually stern demeanor had acquired additional gravity since the attack. Naruto dono, Kuroka-san, the Tengu acknowledged with a short bow. Yasaka Haim awaits in the private dining pavilion. The private dining pavilion proved considerably more intimate than the formal reception halls where Yasaka typically conducted business. Nestled within a garden of perpetually blooming cherry trees, the small structure featured open walls that caught the morning breeze and a low table set for 3. Yasaka herself appeared less formal than usual, her elaborate court attire replaced with a simpler kimono of pale gold silk. Her hair, normally arranged in complex styles secured with ornamental kanzashi, fell in a golden cascade restrained only by a single ornament carved from sacred wood. Even her 9 magnificent tails seemed more relaxed, arranged in a natural fan behind her rather than the rigidly ceremonial posy tions she maintained during official functions. Naruto-san, Kuroka-san, she greeted them, deliberate informality in her address. Thank you for joining me. As they settled around the table, Naruto noticed subtle differences in the atmosphere. No attendants hovered nearby. The typical guards remained at a greater distance than protocol dictated. This was not a formal diplomatic breakfast but something more personal. I've been remiss in my duties as host, Yasaka continued once tea had been poured. You've contributed significantly to Kyoto's security these past weeks, yet I've allowed operational necessities to overshadow proper appreciation. No appreciation necessary, Naruto assured her. The Chaos Brigade threatens all of us. Yasaka's amber eyes studied him with unsettling perception. Indeed, yet most allies would demand concessions, territory, political influence, or other compensation. You've asked for nothing while giving everything. He's irritatingly selfless that way, Kuroka interjected, sipping her tea with feigned disinterest. A character flaw I've been unsuccessfully trying to correct. The subtle joke broke the formality, earning a surprised smile from Yasaka. These moments, brief glimpses of the person beneath the leadership mantle, had become increasingly frequent during their strategic sessions, though always carefully contained. Selflessness aside, Yasaka continued, today's invitation has purpose beyond social niceties. Her expression grew more serious. Our intelligence networks have identified increased activity targeting Nekosho survivors. The Chaos Brigade appears to be hunting them systematically. Kuroka's playful demeanor vanished instantly, her golden eyes hardening. Which survivors? Where? Scattered individuals, primarily in Europe and Southeast Asia. Yasaka replied. Their pattern suggests they're seeking specific bloodlines. My sister, Kuroka whispered, tension radiating from her rigid posture. Naruto glanced between them, recognizing pieces of a story yet untold. Your sister is among the surviving Nekosho. Kuroka's laugh held no humor. Chiron is the reason I became a stray devil, with a death sentence on my head. Bitterness and old pain threaded through her words. The reason I've spent years hiding in shadows while watching her from a distance. Yasaka set down her teacup with deliberate care. Perhaps it's time Naruto-san heard the full history, Kuroka-san. If the Chaos Brigade is indeed targeting Nekosho for the ritual we suspect, all relevant information becomes critical. The N. Ekoshu's golden eyes flickered with momentary resistance before resignation settled in her features. I suppose secrets serve little purpose now. She turned to Naruto, her usual playfulness entirely absent. How much do you know about the Nekosho purge? Only fragments, Naruto admitted. References to devil houses hunting Nekosho to near extinction roughly 15 years ago. Kuroka nodded grimly. 15 years, 2 months. And 8 days ago, to be precise. I counted each one. Her tails curled protectively around her body. The Nekosho were once the most powerful subspecies of Neko. Mata, cat yokai with natural senjutsu abilities. Unlike most yokai who require training to manipulate natural energy, Nekosho are born with the innate capacity to sense and channel it. She paused, memories darkening her expression. This made us valuable. Powerful devil houses sought Nekosho servants, particularly young ones they could raise to absolute loyalty. My parents died resisting capture when I was 14. Chiron was barely 2 years old. The parallels to Naruto's own childhood, orphaned by forces beyond his control, hunted for power he hadn't asked to possess, created immediate understanding. You protected her. I tried, Kuroka acknowledged, bitterness seeping into her voice. We were captured and separated. I was reincarnated as a devil under House Nibirius, turned into a bishop. Piece in their sick chess game. My senjutsu abilities made me valuable enough to keep alive. Her claws unconsciously extended, digging into her palms until Naruto gently covered her hand with his own. The gesture seemed to center her. For 3 years, I played the obedient servant while secretly searching for Chiron. When I finally located her, she had been purchased by my own mast. As a gift, to incentivize my cooperation in certain experiments. Her voice hardened. He intended to modify our senjutsu abilities through forbidden techniques, creating weapons more powerful than traditional sacred gears. Yasaka's tails bristled with controlled anger. Experiments similar to those attempted on the Nekosho children you rescued. Exactly the same, Kuroka confirmed. He devil who owned me provided the original research to what would eventually become the Chaos Brigade's Supernatural Research Division. Her eyes met Naruto's, challenging him to judge her for what came next. When he threatened to begin experiments on Chiron, I killed him. Used senjutsu to stop his heart while he slept. Clean, silent, untraceable to normal detection, but not to devil justice systems, Naruto surmised. No, Kuroka's bitter smile held decades of pain. Killing your master is the ultimate sin for a reincarnated devil. The punishment is execution, typically prolonged and excruciating to discourage others. I managed to escape, but couldn't reach Chiron before the household was locked down. The pain in her voice made clear this separation was her deepest wound, a sister saved yet lost in the same moment. What happened to her? Naruto asked gently. She was eventually taken in by the Grimoire household, Yasaka answered when Kuroka's silence stretched too long. one of the more progressive devil houses. She now serves as a rook in the peerage of the youngest Grammori heir. They renamed her, Kuroka added, her voice barely above a whisper. Chuju Kaneko, erasing her Nekosho heritage completely. She's been taught to fear and reject her natural abilities. To fear what she is. The heartbreak behind Kuroka's typically carefree facade crystallized for Naruto in that moment. Her flirtatious behavior, her calculated self-interest, her fluid allegiances, all survival mechanisms built around the core mission of somehow protecting a sister who now believed her to be a murderous criminal. And now the Chaos Brigade is hunting Nekosho again, Naruto stated, connecting the threads. Including potentially your sister. Kuroka nodded sharply. The ritual hair developing requires specialized senjutsu users to channel and stabilize the Nine Tails energy. Nekosho are ideal conduits because our natural abilities develop from birth rather than through training. Her golden eyes fixed on Yasaka. If they can't capture you or Naruto, they'll seek the next best option, using multiple lesser senjutsu users as substitutes. My sister would be a priority target. Yasaka considered this with the calculated precision that characterized her leadership. The Grammori household has significant security. If they're aware of the threat. They're not, Kuroka interrupted. Devils see the Chaos Brigade as troublemakers and terrorists, not existential threats. They don't understand what's truly at stake. Her voice carried rare desperation. I need to warn her somehow. But can't approach directly. Any contact from me would trigger immediate devil response. Understanding dawned in Naruto's mind. That's why you were tracking me before the rescue operation. You hoped I could somehow help protect your sister. Something vulnerable flickered across Kuroka's features before her usual mask reasserted itself. One of many reasons, Naruto-kun. Your exceptional abilities and delightful company offered numerous incentives. The deflection might have worked weeks earlier, but Naruto had learned to see beyond her carefully constructed facade. We'll find a way to protect her. Kuroka's surprise seemed genuine. You protected your sister at tremendous personal cost, Naruto stated simply. I understand that kind of bond. In my world, I would have done anything to protect those precious to me. The Nekosho stared at him, momentarily stripped of her usual defenses. Something shifted in her expression, trust tentatively emerging where calculation had dominated. Yasaka observed their interaction with thoughtful attention. This presents both challenge and opportunity, she noted. Devil territories remain largely closed to yokai representatives, particularly regarding household matters. However, her tales shifted in a gesture Naruto had learned indicated strategic consideration. Recent events may provide an opening. She explained. That devil leadership had requested information regarding the Kyoto attack, recognizing the potential broader implications of the Chaos Brigade's ambitions. A diplomatic exchange had been proposed. Representatives from major devil houses would visit Kyoto to discuss mutual security concerns. The Grammori heir and his peerage are among those scheduled to attend, Yasaka revealed. Including, presumably, the Nekosho girl. Hope and alarm warred in Kuroka's expression. When? 3 days from now, Yasaka replied. Which leaves little time for preparation. The implications expanded rapidly. A diplomatic summit involving devil representatives would require extraordinary security measures. The potential for Chaos Brigade exploitation of the gathering, with multiple high-value targets in one location, created vulnerability even as it offered opportunity. I'll need to modify the eastern barrier immediately, Naruto concluded, mind already calculating necessary adjustments. Devil Enter. GY signatures require different containment parameters than the current configuration. And I should remain scarce during their visit, Kuroka added pragmatically. My presence would complicate matters considerably. Yasaka shook her head. Your knowledge of devil security protocols and Nekosho protection is invaluable. I've arranged formal immunity certification from the current Lucifer. Your status within Kyoto during the summit will be that of specialized security consultant, not fugitive. Kuroka's eyes widened. How did you manage that? By providing evidence of the experimentation you prevented, Yasaka replied. The rescued Nekosho children's testimony corroborated your account of what House Nibirius attempted. While this doesn't erase your status as a stray devil entirely, it establishes mitigating circumstances recognized under the current Mao's reforms. The revelation left Kuroka momentarily speechless, a rare accomplishment. When she finally spoke, her voice carried uncharacteristic sincerity. "Thank you." Yasaka acknowledged this with a slight nod. "Your expertise has proven valuable to Kyoto. This merely formalizes your contribution." Her attention returned to Naruto. "There's another matter we should address before the diplomatic delegation arrives. The devils will inevitably inquire about your nature and status." The question of Naruto's official position in Kyoto had remained diplomatically ambiguous. While Yasaka had granted him authority over security operations and training, no formal title or role had been established. "What do you propose?" Naruto asked. "An official designation as Kyoto's special security advisor with diplomatic status," Yasaka suggested. "This provides legitimacy to your presence while maintaining your independence from yokai factional politics." The pragmatic solution addressed multiple concerns simultaneously. It would satisfy devil inquiries without binding Naruto to political obligations he might later regret, while reinforcing Kyoto's claim to his protection. "Acceptable," Naruto agreed, "though I suspect some devil representatives may remain curious about my origins." "Curiosity is inevitable," Yasaka acknowledged. "But formal diplomatic status establishes boundaries around what questions require answers." With these matters tentatively resolved, they turned to practical preparations. The remainder of breakfast transformed into a strategic session, with Kuroka providing invaluable insights into devil delegation protocols and likely security concerns. As they prepared to depart, Yasaka addressed Naruto directly. "You'll need formal attire befitting your new status. My tailors will attend you this afternoon." To Kuroka, she added, "I'd appreciate your continued assistance with modifying the visitor protocols. Your perspective as both Nekosho and former devil offers unique insight." The diplomatic assignments effectively concluded their morning meeting. As they exited the pavilion, Kuroka leaned close to Naruto, her lips brushing his ear. "Formal attire fittings. My, our nine-tailed leader certainly takes a personal interest in your presentation." "It's diplomatic necessity," Naruto responded, ignoring the deliberate provocation. Kuroka's knowing smile suggested otherwise. "If you insist. Though I've noticed Yasaka Heim rarely extends such diplomatic necessity to other advisors." Her golden eyes sparkled with mischief. "The Fox Queen has developed quite specific interest in your assets." Before Naruto could formulate a suitable response, a young voice called from the garden path. "Naruto-sama." Kuno bounded toward them, her formal education attire suggesting she'd escaped her tutors. The young kitsune had attached herself to Naruto since the attack, finding every possible excuse to observe his training sessions or accompany his inspection rounds. "Aren't you supposed to be studying ancient ward construction?" Naruto asked, trying to sound stern despite his automatic smile at her enthusiasm. Kuno pouted momentarily before brightening. "That's why I came. I need practical examples of how different energy signatures affect ward stability. Mother says your mixed energy provides perfect demonstration material." Her transparent excuse fooled no one, but Naruto found himself unable to refuse her hopeful expression. "1 hour, he conceded. "Then, straight back to your theoretical studies." Kuno beamed triumphantly while Kuroka observed with evident amusement. "Wrapped around her little finger already," the Nekosho murmured. "The great fox god, defeated by puppy eyes." "I heard that," Kuno declared, sticking her tongue out at Kuroka before grabbing Naruto's hand. "Come on, I want to show you the improvements I made to my fox fire manifestation." As Naruto allowed himself to be led away, Kuroka called after them, "Don't forget your fitting appointment, Naruto-kun. I'm sure Yasaka Heim has very specific measurements in mind." The following days passed in whirlwind preparation. Security protocols were overhauled, diplomatic quarters prepared, and formal ceremonies arranged. Throughout, Naruto divided his attention between physical defenses and strategic planning, integrating devil-specific protections into Kyoto's barrier systems while preparing for potential exploitation of the summit by Chaos Brigade elements. Kuroka proved invaluable, her knowledge of devil protocols allowing for security measures that would protect without insulting the delegation's dignity. Yet Naruto noted her increasing tension as the arrival day approached, anticipation and dread mingling visibly beneath her composed exterior. He found her the night before the delegation's arrival on a rooftop overlooking the reception pavilion where final preparations were underway. Her usual playful demeanor had vanished entirely, replaced by uncharacteristic stillness as she stared toward the horizon. "Can't sleep?" Naruto asked, settling beside her without invitation. "How could I?" Kuroka replied without turning. "Tomorrow I'll see my sister for the first time in 5 years." Her voice carried equal measures hope and fear. "A sister who's been taught to hate everything I represent. Who believes I'm a murderer who abandoned her." Naruto let silence stretch between them, offering presence without pressure. Eventually, Kuroka continued, our words emerging as if drawn from deep within. "The last time I saw her, she was 10 years old. Crying as I was dragged away by security forces. Her claws unconsciously extended, digging into the rooftop tiles. I promised I'd come back for her. Another failure to add to my collection." "You didn't fail her," Naruto countered quietly. "You saved her life." Kuroka's bitter laugh held no humor. "Did I? Or did I simply exchange one cage for another?" She finally turned toward him, moonlight illuminating vulnerability she rarely permitted others to witness. "The devils have her believing her Echo show nature as something dangerous, something to be feared and suppressed. They've stripped her identity, renamed her, reshaped her into something safe for their purposes." The pain behind her words resonated deeply with Naruto, echoing his own childhood isolation. "Then tomorrow offers opportunity to begin changing that perception." "How?" "I can't simply announce, 'Hello sister, everything you've been taught is a lie.' Please trust the murderous stray devil everyone warns about." Her frustration bordered on despair. "She'll see me as the monster they've painted me to be." "Not if she sees you through others' eyes first," Naruto suggested. "Not if she witnesses respect and trust from those she respects." Understanding dawned gradually in Kuroka's expression. "You're suggesting we NGE the narrative before direct confrontation." "Exactly. Let her see you working to protect Kyoto, respected by Yasaka, trusted by me. Create cognitive dissonance between what she's been taught and what she observes firsthand." Hope flickered tentatively in Kuroka's golden eyes. "It could work. Though the Grimoire household has likely poisoned her thoroughly against me. The Grimoire family has reputation for treating their servants well," Naruto noted, recalling information from Yasaka's briefings. "That suggests potential open-mindedness, at least compared to other devil houses." They discussed possibilities until dawn lightened the horizon, developing approaches that might create opportunity for eventual reconciliation without forcing immediate confrontation. Throughout their conversation, Naruto observed Kuroka's defenses gradually lowering, her usual flirtatious deflections replaced by genuine vulnerability and strategic focus. As sunrise painted Kyoto in amber hues, Kuroka surprised him with uncharacteristic directness. "Thank you," she said simply, "for seeing beyond the masks I wear." The moment held unexpected intimacy, her golden eyes meeting his without their usual calculation or seduction. Naruto recognized what this acknowledgement cost someone who had survived through careful performance and strategic isolation. "That's what friends do," he replied with equal sincerity. Something complex flickered across Kuroka's features. "Friends," she repeated, testing the word as if its meaning were unfamiliar. "I haven't had those in a very long time." Before Naruto could respond, she leaned forward with fluid grace, pressing her lips to his cheek in a gesture somehow more meaningful than her previous flirtatious advances. "Be careful with my heart, Naruto-kun," she whispered against his skin. "It's not as resilient as I pretend." She disappeared in a swirl of shadow before he could formulate response, leaving him with the lingering impression of vulnerability. Freely given rather than accidentally revealed. The devil delegation arrived with characteristic dramatic flair, multiple teleportation circles manifesting simultaneously within Kyoto's central reception plaza. The display of magical precision was clearly intended to impress, though Naruto noted the subtle flickers of surprise as devils encountered Kyoto's enhanced barrier systems, which I read them to modulate their teleportation energy to previously provided specifications. Yasaka awaited them on the ceremonial steps, resplendent in formal attire that emphasized her status as both political leader and nine-tailed fox. Her 9 magnificent tails arranged in traditional display, she projected serene authority while Naruto stood at her right hand, now officially designated as Special Security Advisor. His own formal attire, indigo hakama and haori with subtle gold embroidery, marked him as both honored advisor and distinct entity, neither subordinate nor equal to Yasaka but occupying a unique position within Kyoto's hierarchy. "Welcome to Kyoto," Yasaka greeted the delegation formally. "We are honored by your presence and the opportunity to discuss matters of mutual concern." The devil contingent was smaller than initially proposed, 12 representatives rather than 20, suggesting continued wariness despite diplomatic overtures. At their center stood a young man with crimson hair and aristocratic features who stepped forward with practiced courtesy. "Yasaka Dono," he acknowledged with a respectful bow. "I am Rias Grimori, heir to House Grimori. I bring greetings from my brother Searsex Lucifer and the Devil Council." Formal introductions proceeded with ritualistic precision as each devil representative was presented. Naruto paid particular attention to Grimori heirs, peerage, reincarnated devils who served her directly. Among them, he immediately identified Kuroka's sister. Chuju Kaneko appeared approximately 15 years old, small in stature, with white hair and expressionless golden eyes. Unlike other peerage members who projected confidence or curiosity, she maintained rigid control, her emotional signature tightly suppressed beneath layers of self-imposed restraint. Most telling was the complete absence of visible nekosho features, no ears or tail, her yokai nature deliberately concealed. Naruto recognized the signs of someone desperately containing their true nature, having witnessed similar patterns in Jinchuriki who feared their tailed beasts. The pain behind her expressionless facade was evident to his experienced perception. When introductions reached him, he noted the devil's poorly concealed curiosity. His energy signature, neither yokai, devil, nor angel, clearly registered as anomalous to their senses. "This is Uzumaki Naruto," Yasaka introduced him with careful diplomatic phrasing, special security advisor to Kyoto and honored ally of the yokai faction. Rias Grimori studied him with intelligent assessment. "We've heard interesting reports about Kyoto's new advisor. Your assistance during the recent attack has generated considerable discussion in the underworld." The polite phrasing masked evident information gathering. Before Naruto could formulate appropriately diplomatic response, he noticed Kaneko's subtle reaction, her nostrils flaring slightly as she detected his scent, confusion momentarily fracturing her expressionless facade. She sensed the fox energy in his signature, he realized. Given her nekosho heritage, her natural senjutsu abilities would detect the unusual combination of fox and dragon energy he carried, even suppressed beneath careful control. "I simply assisted Kyoto's existing defenses," Naruto replied modestly. Yasaka Dono's leadership was the deciding factor. The diplomatic exchange continued as the delegation was escorted to their quarters to refresh before formal negotiations began. Throughout, Naruto observed Kaneko's growing discomfort, her sensitivity to energy signatures making Kyoto's environment challenging for someone trained to suppress their natural abilities. "The nekosho girl is struggling," he murmured to Yasaka as they temporarily withdrew to allow the devil's privacy. Yasaka nodded slightly. "I noticed. She suppresses her natural abilities completely, a dangerous practice that eventually damages senjutsu channels. Kuroka will be devastated to see her condition," Naruto observed. "Yet another reason to proceed carefully with their potential reunion," Yasaka agreed. "The girl has clearly been taught to reject her heritage entirely." Formal negotiations commenced that afternoon in Kyoto's Central Council chamber. While discussion ostensibly focused on information sharing regarding the Chaos Brigade threat, underlying currents of faction politics shaped every exchange. Devils sought details about the attack while revealing little about their own intelligence. Yokai representatives emphasized the specific targeting of 9T-ailed fox energy while downplaying their defensive vulnerabilities. Throughout these diplomatic maneuvers, Naruto divided his attention between security monitoring and observation of Kaneko, whose discomfort visibly increased as the day progressed. The concentrated yokai energy of Kyoto's inner sanctum seemed to aggravate her suppression techniques, creating visible strain she struggled to conceal. When the formal session concluded for dinner preparations, Naruto deliberately positioned himself near her exit path, allowing her to detect his energy signature more directly. As expected, Ity overcame caution when she found herself momentarily separated from her devil companions. "Your energy is wrong," she stated flatly, golden eyes assessing him with wary confusion. "Fox but not fox. Something else mixed in." Her directness reminded him painfully of Kuroka, though lacking her sister's playful delivery. Perceptive, Naruto acknowledged. Most can't identify the specific components. Kaniko's eyes narrowed slightly. Are you yokai? You don't feel like pure yokai. It's complicated, Naruto replied honestly. My energy signature is unique due to circumstances of my origin. The young Nekosho studied him with surprising intensity for one so outwardly impassive. You control it without suppression techniques. The observation revealed volumes about her own struggles. Control doesn't require suppression, Naruto explained gently. They're different approaches to the same challenge. Something vulnerable flickered behind her expressionless facade, longing quickly buried beneath practiced indifference. Senjutsu is dangerous. It corrupts. The statement sounded rehearsed, as if repeating doctrine she'd been taught rather than expressing personal belief. Naruto recognized the opportunity to plant seeds of doubt in harmful teachings. Natural energy itself is neutral, he corrected carefully. Neither good nor evil, its effects depend entirely on the user's approach and intention. Confusion and uncertainty crossed Kaniko's features before she could restore her impassive mask. Before she could respond, a voice called from the corridor. Kaniko, where did you go? A blonde devil from the Grimoire peerage, introduced earlier as Kiba Yuto, appeared with concerned expression. Bushu is looking for you. Dinner preparation has begun. Kaniko immediately withdrew behind emotional walls, her momentary openness vanishing completely. Coming, she replied tonelessly, turning away from Naruto without further acknowledgement. As they departed, Naruto sensed Ed's familiar presence materializing from shadow nearby. Well handled, Kuroka murmured, materializing partially visible only to his enhanced perception. You've planted the first seed of doubt. She's been deeply conditioned, Naruto observed. The damage runs deeper than simply suppressing her abilities. Kuroka's expression revealed momentary anguish before hardening with determination. One step at a time. Tonight's dinner will provide additional opportunities. The formal dinner that evening featured elaborate cultural exchange, traditional yokai cuisine presented alongside underworld delicacies brought by the devil delegation. Seating arrangements strategically positioned Naruto between devil and yokai representatives, his unique status making him natural intermediary. Throughout the carefully choreographed event, he noted Kaniko's continued discomfort. The young Nekosho picked at her food, her senses clearly overwhelmed by Kyoto's concentrated yokai energy. More concerning, he detected fluctuations in her suppression techniques, signs of fatigue from maintaining unnatural constraints on her abilities. When opportunity presented itself during a momentary lull in conversation, Naruto addressed Rias Grimoire directly. Your rook appears uncomfortable in our environment. Kyoto's natural energy concentration can be challenging for those sensitive to such things. The Mson-haired devil glanced toward Kaniko with genuine concern. Yes, she has mentioned difficulty adjusting. Unfortunately, her specific circumstances make energy sensitivity complicated. The full phrasing suggested awareness of Kaniko's Nekosho heritage without directly referencing it, political caution in yokai territory. Perhaps she would benefit from specialized stabilization techniques, Naruto suggested. We have methods that help channel rather than block natural energy, reducing discomfort without risk. Rias considered this with thoughtful attention. An interesting offer. Huff Kaniko's training has focused on different approaches. Sometimes alternative perspectives provide unexpected solutions, Naruto replied diplomatically. Particularly for those with unique sensitivity patterns. Their conversation drew Yasaka's attention from nearby. Naruto-san's techniques have proven remarkably effective for various energy-sensitive individuals, she contributed smoothly. Including several young yokai with challenging control issues. The coordinated approach succeeded in piquing Rias's interest. I'm certainly open to anything that might help Kaniko. She's precious to me, and her comfort is important. Quote, the opening created, Yasaka suggested a specialized demonstration the following morning, a training session where Naruto could present techniques potentially beneficial to energy-sensitive individuals. Several of our younger yokai struggle with similar challenges, Yasaka explained, maintaining the diplomatic fiction that this was general assistance rather than specifically targeted intervention. A joint training session could benefit participants from both factions. Rias agreed readily, her evident concern for Kaniko's well-being overriding potential political caution. The arrangement established, conversation shifted to broader topics, though Naruto noted Kaniko's subtle attention to the exchange, hope and fear warring beneath her expressionless exterior. Later that evening, as guests retired to their quarters, Naruto met with Kuroka and Yasaka in a secure chamber beneath the central shrine. There, they refined their approach for the following day's critical opportunity. Direct confrontation remains inadvisable, Yasaka cautioned as they discussed potential scenarios. The girl has been conditioned to fear both her heritage and specifically her sister. Revelation must come gradually, Kuroka paced with restless energy. I understand the strategy, but seeing her suffering like this. She struggled visibly with conflicting impulses. Those suppression techniques are damaging her energy pathways permanently. Which is why tomorrow's training session is crucial, Naruto emphasized. We can introduce alternative approaches had begin healing the damage without directly challenging her conditioning. They debated specific techniques well into the night, developing a carefully structured program that would address Kaniko's immediate discomfort while subtly introducing healthier perspectives on natural energy manipulation. Throughout, Kuroka alternated between strategic focus and barely contained emotional distress, her usual masks abandoned among those who had earned her trust. Dawn brought unexpected complication. As Naruto completed perimeter inspection before the scheduled training session, his enhanced senses detected unfamiliar energy signatures probing Kyoto's outermost barriers, subtle, professional assessment rather than overt attack. We have visitors, he reported to Yasaka, who joined him atop the eastern watchtower. Advanced reconnaissance, testing defensive adjustments rather than seeking immediate breach. The nine-tailed fox leader extended her senses, golden energy briefly illuminating her eyes. Devil energy signatures, but not matching our guests. Her expression hardened with understanding. Stray devil hunters, most likely. Their timing suggests intelligence regarding Kuroka's presence. The implication was clear. Someone had informed devil authorities about the Nekoshu's restricted immunity within Kyoto, likely hoping to create diplomatic incident during the summit. The KHAOS brigade seeking to disrupt negotiations, Naruto suggested. Possibly, Yasaka agreed. Are factional elements within Devil Society opposed to the current Mao's reforms? Her tales shifted with controlled agitation. Either way, we cannot permit hunter operations within our territory during diplomatic exchange. They dispatched specialized yokai scouts to monitor the hunters' movements while maintaining heightened alert throughout Kyoto's defenses. The planned training session would proceed, but with additional security measures discreetly implemented. The training grounds chosen for the demonstration reflected careful strategic consideration, a secluded garden featuring natural energy focal points where senjutsu techniques could be practiced efficiently, yet sufficiently distant from diplomatic quarters to maintain deniable separation between official negotiations and more personal interventions. Naruto arrived early to prepare the environment, establishing subtle energy patterns that would facilitate natural energy manipulation for beginners. As promised, Yasaka had arranged several young yokai participants, Kitsune and Tanuki with developing senjutsu potential who would provide cover for Kaniko's specialized instruction. The Grimoire heir arrived with her rook and knight, maintaining appropriate escort protocol while demonstrating genuine interest in the training opportunity. Kaniko's expression remained impassive, though Naruto detected heightened tension beneath her controlled exterior. Thank you for this opportunity, Ria stated as formal pleasantries were exchanged. Kaniko has experienced increasing sensitivity issues in recent months. Alternative approaches could prove valuable. Naruto maintained professional demeanor while establishing comfortable training atmosphere. Natural energy sensitivity is both gift and challenge, he explained as participants gathered. Traditional approaches often emphasize suppression or isolation of sensitive pathways. Today, we'll explore integration and channeling instead. The session began with basic exercises, controlled breathing patterns synchronized with environmental energy flows, designed to create harmony rather than resistance between internal and external forces. While the young yokai participants engaged enthusiastically, Kaniko maintained reluctant participation, her movements technically correct but emotionally withheld. Notice how resistance creates pressure, Naruto demonstrated, allowing natural energy to flow visibly around his form before smoothly redirecting it. Whereas accepting E followed by gentle guidance creates stability. He worked with each participant individually, adjusting instructions to their specific needs. When he finally approached Kaneko, he maintained careful distance, respecting her evident discomfort with physical proximity. Your sensitivity is exceptionally developed, he observed, keeping his tone professionally neutral. Though your current techniques fight against that natural ability rather than working with it. Suspicion flashed in her golden eyes. How would you know my techniques? The energy disruption patterns are distinctive, Naruto explained honestly. I've encountered similar approaches before, particularly among those taught to fear their own abilities. The observation struck closer to truth than diplomacy might recommend. But Naruto recognized the need for authentic connection rather than careful maneuvering. Kaneko's walls had been built through genuine trauma. They would not be circumvented through manipulation, Why through honest alternative perspective? Try this approach instead, he suggested, demonstrating a modified version of Sage Chakra control he had developed specifically for her needs. Rather than blocking environmental energy completely, create a circulation pattern that processes it gradually. Skepticism evident, Kaneko nevertheless attempted the technique. Her surprise when it actually read. Her discomfort was impossible to conceal, golden eyes widening slightly as tension visibly eased from her shoulders. The pressure, she murmured, momentary wonder breaking through her expressionless facade, is reduced because you're no longer fighting the natural flow, Naruto completed. Your body is designed to channel this energy, not resist it. As the session progressed, Kaneko's reluctance gradually diminished. Each successful technique increased her willingness to attempt the next, creating positive reinforcement cycle that Rias observed with evident approval. I haven't seen her this comfortable in months. The devil heiress commented quietly to Naruto as Kaneko practiced alongside the young yokai. Whatever you're teaching clearly addresses issues our approaches have missed. Different perspectives offer different solutions, Naruto replied diplomatically. Her natural sensitivity simply requires appropriate channeling techniques rather than suppression. Rias's thoughtful expression suggested deeper understanding than her position might indicate. Her background makes certain approaches politically complicated in devil society. Historical incidents have created unfortunate associations between her species' natural abilities and dangerous outcomes. The careful reference to the Nekosho purge confirmed Rias's awareness of the broader context. Naruto recognized opportunity to cautiously advance understanding. Natural energy itself is neutral, he observed. Historical misuse by specific individuals doesn't make the ability inherently dangerous, only improperly understood. A perspective that has gained traction under my brother's administration, Rias acknowledged. Though older houses maintain traditional viewpoints, their conversation continued along these cautiously progressive lines until interrupted by sudden shift in the garden's energy patterns, a subtle disturbance that immediately captured Naruto's attention. We have company, he murmured, extending his senses toward the disturbance. Multiple energy signatures approached from beyond Kyoto's central barrier, professionally masked but detectable to his enhanced perception. The devil hunters had penetrated further than anticipated, their trajectory suggesting specific target acquisition rather than general reconnaissance. They're tracking someone, Naruto realized with growing concern. Using specialized detection equipment. Understanding dawned immediately. Kaneko, Rias whispered, her expression shifting from diplomatic calm to protective alert. They must Avenue detected her Nekosho energy signature once she began using these techniques. The revelation confirmed their worst fears. The hunters had come specifically for Nekosho targets, using the diploma. Tick Summit as cover for operation within yokai territory. Kaneko's participation in energy channeling exercises, however beneficial, had inadvertently created trackable signature for those specifically hunting her species. We need to move everyone to secure location, Naruto decided, already signaling the hidden yokai guards. Without creating panic or diplomatic incident, Yasaka materialized from administrative building nearby. Her arrival time to appear coincidental rather than responsive to threat. Perhaps we should continue the training indoors, she suggested with casual authority that brooked no argument. The weather patterns suggest afternoon rain. The transparent excuse fooled no one among the leadership, but provided face-saving explanation for abrupt relocation. As party, CI pants were efficiently guided toward nearby building, Naruto created Shadow Clone to accompany them while his original self prepared to intercept the approaching hunters. "I'll handle this," he told Yasaka through subtle hand signs. Their weeks of cooperation had established as private communication. "Maintain diplomatic deniability." Her slight nod conveyed both agreement and caution. The nine-tailed leader would protect the devils and young yokai while Naruto addressed the hunters directly, approach that maintained Kyoto's official protocols while practically resolving the threat. As the training group disappeared inside, Naruto moved with enhanced speed toward the approaching signatures, intent on interception before they reached populated areas. The hunters had penetrated roughly half way through Kyoto's layered defenses, impressive achievement that suggested both professional skill and specialized equipment. He found them in wooded area near abandoned shrine, 5 figures intact. Ikal gear designed for supernatural combat operations. Their equipment featured modified devil tech with specialized detection components Naruto recognized from Kuroka's descriptions of hunter operations. Rather than immediate confrontation, he observed briefly from concealed position. The team moved with military precision, following detection equipment that clearly tracked specific energy signature. Their loadout included specialized restraints designed for yokai capture rather than elimination, kidnapping equipment rather than assassination tools. Not standard devil hunters then, but specialized acquisition team. Their objective wasn't punishment of strays but capture of Nekosho subjects, consistent with Chaos Brigade operations rather than official devil justice system. Decision made. Naruto abandoned stealth for direct approach. He appeared before them in casual stance that belied his combat readiness, hands visible to suggest non-aggression while his posture communicated absolute confidence. "You're trespassing in Kyoto's sovereign territory during diplomatic summit," he stated calmly. "Unauthorized incursion violates 17 different protocols established for this exchange." The hunters reacted with professional control. No startled movements or impulsive attacks, just immediate defensive formation and weapon readiness. Their leader, a woman with silver hair and cold eyes, assessed him with clinical precision. "Official devil business," she stated flatly. "Tracking dangerous stray under interdiction order. Yokai territory harboring known criminal falls under exception clauses of the Budapest Accords." The diplomatic justification sounded rehearsed yet technically accurate, a prepared cover story for operation within yokai boundaries. However, their equipment and approach suggested different objective than their stated mission. "If you sought official exception, protocol requires advance notification through proper channels," Naruto countered. "Instead, you penetrated multiple security barriers without authorization." The leader's expression revealed nothing. Advance notification compromises operational security when targeting high-value strays. Standard procedure permits expedited intervention with post-operation diplomatic notification. Their exchange maintained veneer of procedural dispute while both sides evaluated combat options. The Hunter's formation suggested experience with powerful opponents, space to prevent single-target neutralization while maintaining overlapping fields of fire. "Then you'll have no objection to formal verification of your authorization," Naruto suggested reasonably. "The devil delegation currently meeting with Yasaka Dono can easily confirm your operational parameters." Tension rippled through the Hunter team, micro-expressions and subtle shifts in stance revealing the trap in Naruto's suggestion. If they were operating without official sanction or with objectives beyond their stated mission, verification would expose their true purpose. The leader made her decision with cold calculation. "Unfortunate that diplomatic formalities interfere with justice," she stated, subtle hand gesture directing her team to offensive positioning. "We'll need to complete our operation independently." Their attack came with synchronized precision, 3 different magical circles activating simultaneously. EL specialized weaponry deployed containment fields designed to restrict movement and power usage. Standard devil hunter tactics for high-value target acquisition. Naruto allowed their initial attack to proceed without resistance. Curious about their tactical approach and equipment capabilities. The containment field shimmered around him, magical constraints tightening with impressive efficiency. Target secured, one hunter reported mechanically, proceeding with secondary identification. The leader approached with handheld device that scanned Naruto's energy signature. Her expression shifted from clinical detachment to confusion as readings displayed. "This isn't the target profile," she stated sharply. Energy signature classification inconsistent with Nekosho parameters. I never claimed to be Nekosho. Naruto noted conversationally, still making no move against his restraints. I simply identified your unauthorized incursion. Realization dawned in the leader's cold eyes. You're the anomaly asset, Kyoto's new security advisor. Her gaze hardened with recalculation. Acquisition parameters expanded 2 days ago to include your profile if encountered. Fortunate coincidence. The revelation confirmed Naruto's suspicions. These weren't official Devil Hunters but Chaos Brigade operatives using Devil methodology as cover. Their interest in both Nekosho targets and himself suggested coordinated intelligence operation rather than opportunistic encounter. Not particularly fortunate, Naruto corrected mildly. He flexed slightly against the restraint field, golden energy rippling across his skin as he tested its resistance. These containment parameters were calibrated for yokai energy signatures, ineffective against my particular profile. With casual ease, he shattered the containment field, golden energy erupting around him in controlled release that disrupted the magical circuits without causing collateral damage. The hunters immediately shifted to secondary containment protocols. But Naruto moved before they could complete activation. He appeared behind the rear security element, disabling their specialized equipment with precise strikes before they could register his movement. 2 more hunters found themselves similarly neutralized in rapid succession, their weapons disabled and mobility restricted without permanent injury. The leader and her remaining operative responded with impressive adaptation, switching from capture protocols to combat engagement. Lightning-infused weapons deployed with professional efficiency, creating deadly energy pattern designed to overwhelm even supernatural reflexes. Naruto countered with wind-natured energy, diffusing the lightning attacks while closing distance with controlled speed. He recognized the importance of capturing rather than eliminating these operatives. Their intelligence value regarding Chaos Brigade operations outweighed the convenience of simplified combat resolution. The remaining operative proved surprisingly resilient, his defensive techniques suggesting specialized training against high-speed opponents. Naruto adjusted accordingly, using shadow clone distraction to create opening for precision strike against nerve cluster that induced temporary paralysis. Only the leader remained active, her cold calculation giving way to focused intensity as she recognized the inevitable outcome. Asset classification underestimated, she noted clinically, despite her deteriorating tactical position. Containment parameters insufficient. Her final attack came not as desperate as Su but calculated sacrifice, a magical circle activating beneath her feet as she triggered what Naruto immediately recognized as self-destruction protocol. The imminent magical detonation would eliminate both her and any evidence of their true mission parameters. Naruto moved with maximum speed, golden energy flaring as he created containment barrier around the expanding magical discharge. The explosion's force pressed against his hastily constructed shield, magical energy seeking weaknesses with programmed determination. With concentrated effort, he redirected the blast upward through controlled channel, dispersing its destructive potential into harmless light display visible briefly above Kyoto's skyline. The leader collapsed unconscious but alive, her self-destruction protocol realized through energy redirection rather than direct suppression. The entire engagement had lasted less than 2 minutes. As Naruto secured the unconscious hunters for interrogation, familiar presence materialized from nearby shadows. Impressive efficiency, Kuroka observed, stepping fully into visibility. Though you might have left one conscious for immediate questioning, they'll provide more reliable intelligence through proper interrogation than field questioning, Naruto replied, examining the specialized equipment for self-destruction mechanisms before securing it as evidence. Besides, I suspected you were watching. If you wanted one conscious, you could have intervened. Kuroka's smile held uncharacteristic edge. I was more interested in observing your combat approach. Educational to witness such precise neutralization. Her casual tone failed to conceal deeper tension. Naruto recognized the strain beneath her composed exterior, watching hunters target her sister Will. Maintaining operational distance had clearly exacted emotional toll. They were tracking Kaniko's energy signature, he confirmed quietly. Once she began using natural channeling techniques instead of suppression, pain flickered across Kuroka's features. The cruel irony, The healthier approach to her abilities made her more vulnerable to those hunting her, which confirms our suspicions about their true objectives. Naruto noted, official devil hunters would target you specifically, not unidentified Nekosho signatures. These operatives were seeking Nekosho subjects for the Chaos Brigade, using hunter methodology as cover. Quote, before they could discuss further implications, Yasaka arrived with small security detail, her expression revealing controlled anger beneath political composure. The diplomatic delegation has been secured, she reported. Though maintaining appropriate diplomatic fiction required considerable creativity, her gaze fell to the captured hunters, assessment both political and strategic. Infiltrators during official summit violates multiple treaties. The devil leadership will be formally outraged, whether or not these operatives represent official policy. They don't, Naruto confirmed. Equipment and tactical approach suggests Chaos Brigade using Devil Hunter methodology as operational cover. Their leader confirmed expanded acquisition parameter. RS that included both Nekosho signatures and myself specifically. Yasaka's tails bristled with controlled anger. Attacking during diplomatic exchange demonstrates escalating boldness. They risk end conflict between major factions to acquire their targets. Or perhaps that's an additional objective, Kuroka suggested darkly. Creating diplomatic incident between yokai and devils serves multiple strategic purposes. The implications expanded with each moment of consideration. If the Chaos Brigade sought both specific supernatural resources and broader factional conflict, their operational planning demonstrated sophisticated strategic depth beyond typical terrorist methodology. As yokai security forces secured the prisoners for transport to interrogation facilities, Naruto addressed the immediate practical concern. Kaniko's training session revealed her Nekosho energy signature to tracking systems. She needs protection during the remainder of the delegation's stay. Already implemented, Yasaka assured him. I've assigned specialized guards under diplomatic pretext of cultural exchange security. Rias Grimori accepted the arrangement with appropriate political gratitude, while clearly understanding the actual purpose. Kuroka's expression revealed complex emotions. She truly cares for my sister's well-being, doesn't she? This devil girl who keeps Sharon in gilded cage. She seems genuinely concerned with Kaniko's comfort and safety, Naruto confirmed. Whatever political complications exist between Devil Society and Nekosho heritage, her personal attachment appears sincere. This assessment visibly conflicted Kuroka, whose justified anger toward Devil Society warred with reluctant appreciation for anyone protecting her sister. Convenient that genuine Re and political advantage align in keeping a rare Nekosho close, she observed bitterly. Perhaps, Yasaka acknowledged, but advantageous alignment doesn't negate genuine concern. The Grimori heir's reputation for caring about her peerage members appears substantiated by her actions today. As they returned toward the diplomatic quarter, Naruto detailed the hunters, equipment specifications and tactical approach, providing Yasaka information necessary for diplomatic navigation of the incident. Throughout, Kuroka remained uncharacteristically quiet, her thoughts clearly centered on implications for her sister. When they reached secure communication point where paths diverged, Yasaka toward diplomatic damage control, Naruto toward security coordination, Kuroka finally voiced her deepest concern. They'll target her again, she stated with quiet certainty. Today's failure simply means improved methodology next time. As long as the Chaos Brigade needs Nekosho subjects for their dimensional ritual, Sharon remains priority acquisition target. The truth hung heavily between them, unavoidable despite diplomatic complications. Then we need more permanent solution than temporary protective details, Naruto concluded. What do you propose? Yasaka asked, genuine curiosity beneath her diplomatic composure. Naruto considered options with strategic thoroughness his time in this world had developed. Kaniko needs proper training in her natural abilities, not suppression that makes her vulnerable to detection systems, but actual mastery that includes defensive capabilities. Quote, the devils would never permit such training, Kuroka objected. Their entire approach relies on keeping her abilities contained and controlled. Perhaps, Naruto acknowledged, but today's events provide leverage. The attack demonstrates clear targeting of Nekosho abilities specifically. From pure security perspective, proper training represents better protection than continued suppression. Why? Asaka considered this with thoughtful attention. A compelling argument, particularly when presented by Kyoto's security advisor rather than concerned sister. Her tales shifted in gesture Naruto had learned indicated strategic planning. I could propose formal training exchange program, specialized security techniques shared between factions. Politically palatable approach that accomplishes practical objective. Hope flickered in Kuroka's golden eyes. You think the Grimoire girl might agree? Her concern for Kaniko's well-being appears genuine, Yasaka observed. And today's attack provides compelling justification for enhanced protective measures. The strategy took shape as they discussed implementation details, diplomatic framework that would enable practical protection while maintaining appropriate political appearances. Throughout, Naruto recognized the delicate balance required, addressing genuine security concerns while navigating complex factional politics and personal emotional stakes. As their planning concluded and they separated to address immediate responsibilities, Kuroka caught Naruto's arm briefly. "Thank you," she said simply, genuine vulnerability replacing her usual calculated performance. For seeing the person behind the monster everyone fears. The gratitude carried weight beyond the immediate situation, acknowledgement of how Naruto had recognized the wounded protector beneath her carefully constructed facade of self-interested survivor. "You were never a monster," he replied quietly. "Just someone who sacrificed everything to protect what mattered most." Something shifted in Kuroka's golden eyes, protective walls momentarily lowering to reveal deeper emotion than she typically permitted herself to display. Without warning, she leaned forward and depressed her lips to his, not the teasing, playful kisses she had occasionally used as distraction or manipulation, but genuine expression of emotion she couldn't articulate in words. The contact lasted only moments before she withdrew, shadows already gathering around her form as she prepared to disappear. "Be careful with my heart, Naruto," she whispered, echoing her earlier warning with new depth. "I'm not accustomed to having one that functions properly." Before he could respond, she vanished into shadow, leaving him with lingering impression of vulnerability freely offered rather than tactically deployed. The remainder of the Devil delegation's visit proceeded with heightened security and diplomatic complexity. The Hunter incursion created both practical challenges and strategic opportunities. Official protests exchanged alongside genuine security cooperation against mutual threat. Throughout these developments, Naruto continued Kaniko's modified training whenever diplomatic schedules permitted. The young Nekoshu's progress proved remarkable once appropriate techniques replaced harmful suppression methods. While her emotional walls remained largely intact, her physical calm, fort and energy stability improved visibly with each session. On the delegation's final day, as preparations for departure proceeded with formal efficiency, Rias Grimoire requested private audience with Naruto. "Your assistance with Kaniko's training has proven invaluable," she began once appropriate privacy had been established. "Her comfort has improved significantly since implementing your techniques. I'm pleased they've proven helpful," Naruto replied diplomatically. "Her natural abilities are exceptional. Proper channeling rather than suppression allows her to function with greater stability." Rias studied him with intelligent assessment, which raises questions about long-term training approaches. Her expression revealed genuine concern beneath political calculation. Our incursion demonstrated that Nekosho abilities remain targeted despite our protective measures. A concerning reality, Naruto acknowledged, recognizing opportunity to advance previously discussed strategy. Proper defensive training might provide more effective protection than continued suppression. "My thoughts exactly," Rias agreed with surprising directness. "Which is why I'd like to propose ongoing training exchange. Kaniko could return to Kyoto periodically for specialized instruction, while some of my peerage members could share devil defensive techniques with your security forces." The proposal aligned perfectly with Yasaka's suggested approach, political framework for practical protection. "An excellent suggestion that benefits both our factions," Naruto responded with appropriate enthusiasm. "I'll present it to Yasaka Dono immediately." As they discussed implementation details, Naruto recognized genuine concern motivating Rias's political maneuvering. Whatever complicated factors influenced devil approaches to Nekosho abilities, the Grimoire heir's personal attachment to Kaniko appeared sincere rather than merely calculated. Their conversation concluded with formal agreement to develop exchange program proposal for respective leadership approval. As they prepared to rejoin the departure preparations, Rias paused with uncharacteristic hesitation. There's something else, she began carefully. Kaneko has asked if, that is, she wonders if you might know anything about other Nekosho survivors. Her personal history includes complicated family circumstances. The carefully phrased inquiry confirmed what Naruto had suspected. Kaneko's improved comfort with her abilities had reawakened interest in her heritage and potentially her sister. Rather than deflecting, he opted for carefully measured honesty. I've encountered some information about surviving Nekosho, he acknowledged. Though much remains fragmented due to historical circumstances. If Kaneko wishes to explore her heritage, appropriate resources could be arranged within training exchange framework. Relief and caution mingled in Rias's expression. I believe that would be beneficial for her healing process. Though certain historical events remain emotionally complicated, healing often requires facing complicated truths, Naruto observed. With proper support and context, their understanding established with diplomatic subtlety, they rejoined the formal departure proceedings. Throughout the elaborate ceremony, Naruto noted Kaneko's subtle attention to his interactions. Assessment rather than mere observation, suggesting internal recalibration of previous assumptions. As the devils prepared their transportation circles for return journey, Kaneko approached Naruto directly. Her expressionless facade briefly yielding to determined purpose. The training helped, she stated simply. I would like to continue learning proper techniques. I'd be honored to continue. Your instruction whenever circumstances permit, Naruto replied with careful balance between formal courtesy and personal sincerity. Kaneko studied him with penetrating assessment that belied her youth. You know more about Nekosho than you've shared. The direct challenge might have warranted diplomatic deflection, but Naruto recognized the courage required for her to voice the question. Yes, he acknowledged honestly. When you're ready for that knowledge, it will be available. Something vulnerable flickered behind her golden eyes, hope warring with deeply ingrained fear. Soon, she decided with surprising resolution. I'm tired of not understanding what I am. With that declaration of independence from her conditioned limitations, she rejoined her devil companions. As transportation circles activated, Naruto sensed Kuroka watching from concealed position nearby, her emotional signature complex mixture of hope, fear, and cautious optimism. The devils departed in synchronized magical display, leaving Kyoto's diplomatic quarter suddenly quieter despite ongoing activity. As yokai officials began post-summit assessments and security teams returned to normal protocols, Naruto sought momentary solitude on familiar rooftop overlooking the capital. Kuroka found him there as sunset painted Kyoto in amber hues. Well played, she acknowledged, settling beside him with uncharacteristic quietness. The training exchange creates perfect opportunity for eventual reunion. When she's ready, Naruto emphasized. Pushing too quickly could reverse progress. Kuroka nodded, RP rising him with patient acceptance rather than impulsive objection. I've waited 5 years. I can manage a few more months for proper healing. Her golden eyes reflected sunset's glow as she gazed toward distant mountains. She's finding her way back to herself. That's worth more than immediate gratification. The mature perspective revealed depths to Kuroka beyond the calculated survivor or flirtatious distractor she typically presented. Naruto recognized growth in her approach, willingness to prioritize Kaneko's healing process over her own emotional needs. You'll be an important part of that healing, he assured her. When the time comes, Kuroka's smile held bittersweet complexity. Perhaps, though I wonder if she'll ever forgive what my actions cost her, childhood, stability, identity. Her voice quieted to near whisper. Sometimes necessary choices leave wounds too deep for simple healing. Those are exactly the wounds that require healing most, Naruto countered gently. Quote, and forgiveness often begins with understanding. They sat in companionable silence as darkness gradually claimed Kyoto, lights appearing across both human and yokai realms. The peaceful moment proved, unfortunately temporary, a messenger arriving with urgent summons from Yasaka. The nine-tailed leader awaited them in secure communication chamber, her expression grave as they entered. The hunter. Infiltration was more significant than initially assessed, she stated without preamble. Interrogation reveals secondary team successfully planted monitoring devices throughout diplomatic quarter before being neutralized. The security implications expanded immediately, any information exchanged during summit potentially compromised, including training arrangements and Nekosho protection planning. Containment status. Naruto asked, mentally reviewing vulnerable information potentially exposed. Devices located and neutralized, Yasaka confirmed. However, transmission analysis suggests MI. Nimium 48 hours of active monitoring before detection. Kuroka's expression hardened with professional assessment. Sufficient time to capture strategic elements of security arrangements, barrier modifications, and personnel deployment patterns. Her golden eyes narrowed with calculated focus. They were gathering intelligence for larger operation. The conclusion aligned with Naruto's own analysis. The Chaos Brigade had used the diplomatic summit and hunter incursion as complex intelligence gathering operation, accepting tactical losses for strategic information gain. We should ask. They obtained anything discussed in diplomatic quarter, Yasaka decided, including training exchange proposals and Kaniko's improved abilities. The implications chilled further discussion. If He Chaos Brigade now possessed updated information about both Kyoto's defenses and Nekosho targets, their next operation would come with significantly improved tactical parameters. We need to accelerate defensive preparations, Naruto concluded, and establish counter-surveillance protocols for all sensitive locations. As they began developing response strategies, a yokai messenger arrived. Additional concerning development. Reports from boundary wardens of unusual energy fluctuations at Kyoto's outermost perimeter. Multiple detection points registering dimensional instability, the messenger reported. Pattern inconsistent with natural phenomena or known transportation methods. Naruto exchanged alarmed glance with Yasaka, both immediately recognizing potential significance. If the Chaos Brigade had progressed their dimensional manipulation research using information gathered from the summit infiltration, these disturbances could represent experimental testing of techniques eventually intended for accessing the dimensional gap. Maximum alert status, Yasaka ordered immediately. All boundary wardens to observation protocols only, no direct engagement with anomalies. As the messenger departed to implement these instructions, Kuroka voiced the concern dominating all their thoughts. They're accelerating their timeline. The summit infiltration provided whatever missing elements they needed for next phase. Quote, the observation hung heavily in the chamber, implications expanding with each moment of consideration. The Chaos Brigade's ambitions extended beyond factiona conflict or political destabilization to fundamental manipulation of dimensional boundaries, threat transcending traditional supernatural politics. Then we accelerate accordingly, Naruto stated with quiet determination. Beginning now. Quote, as night settled over Kyoto, three figures reviewed security protocols and deployment strategies with focused intensity, preparing for conflict that would ultimately determine far more than territorial sovereignty or factional dominance. Behind their strategic planning lay recognition of fundamental truth. The boundaries between dimensions were weakening. Whatever emerged from that instability would reshape the supernatural world completely. In the dimensional gap beyond conventional reality, Great Red sensed the disturbances rippling through dimensional barriers. The Dragon of Dragons shifted cosmic attention toward these anomalous energy patterns, recognizing coordinated attempt to breach the boundaries of its domain. With growing interest, the primordial entity extended fractional awareness toward golden energy signature that had captured its attention months earlier. The fox who walked with dragons might had become central nexus in expanding conflict, precisely as ancient prophecy had foretold. The wheels of destiny continued turning, their motion now accelerating toward inevitable convergence of powers beyond mortal comprehension. The maelstrom approached, and reality itself would soon feel its impact. Chapter 3 End. The end. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.